This is Audible.
Third Eye Awakening, the complete meditation guide to open your third eye, increase mind power, clarity, concentration, insight, and enhance your awareness. Written by Mark Madison. Narrated by Ronald Hillman. Introduction. If you're not familiar with the concept of the third eye, it may seem somewhat elusive to you. Is it a physical or a metaphysical part of the body? Can it be understood in tangible terms, or is it an issue of faith? And what does it mean to open the third eye? What can you hope to find when you do? You probably picked up this guide because you've heard that opening the third eye can provide you with a number of benefits. Peace, relief, tranquility, concentration and focus, for instance. The real challenge, then, is figuring out the best way to tap into that mystifying world of third eyes, chakras, and meditation. But I know also that there are plenty of reasons why people are hesitant about starting out on this journey towards so-called enlightenment. Group classes can feel odd, especially when it seems like the teacher takes the whole thing way too seriously for your taste, and all this umming and ahhing is not what you expected. On the other hand, meeting with someone one-on-one can feel downright awkward, not to mention costly. So, if you're not a person who generally buys into the whole scene, healing crystals and meditation retreats and all that, you might have struggled to get started. Well, if you're here, it's likely because you're not ready to give up just because you don't vibe with some of the mainstream practices. Fortunately, the breadth of practices out there, from yoga to guided meditation to mindfulness, shows that there's not just one way to reap the benefits of this inner exploration. In fact, you might be surprised to find out that you already carry with you all the tools you need to understand and build a relationship with your third eye. I don't mean to say that you don't need any kind of system either. After all, you can sit for as long as you'd like in the perfect lotus pose, palms upturned, just like you've seen on every meditation book, and never get any closer to understanding your third eye. Most likely, you'll just end up ruminating about any number of things. Your grocery list, your bills, how uncomfortable the floor is. You get the point. This is why group meditation practices like yoga are so popular. When you're surrounded by people who are all on the same path, you might feel more comfortable and open to the process. What this guide is intended to do is to help you create a plan that works for your lifestyle. In a sense, you're going to become your very own meditation guru, your own neuroscientist, your own spiritual leader. So whether you're looking to enhance a meditation practice that you already have, or you're starting from scratch, this guide is going to make you more confident in your ability to connect with and open your third eye. Here's a bit of what you can expect here. Part 1 is intended to answer all of the preliminary questions you might have about meditation and the third eye. Think of it as a crash course in meditation, one that gives you a whole lot of information, that is. We'll begin in Chapter 1 with an explanation of the concept of the third eye, where it came from, and how you can find your own meaning in this source of energy and light. We'll also cover some useful definitions to give you the language of meditation. No more sitting in a yoga class and thinking, what in the world is a mudra? Next, Chapter 2 goes through a quick history on different meditation practices and their roots to give you a sense of the broadness of this field and help you find your place within it. In Chapter 3, we'll dive into the neurological, psychological, and physical benefits of opening your third eye. Once you've gained the foundational understanding of the third eye in these first 3 chapters, we'll be ready to start exploring your personal journey. The second half of this guide, then, will serve as a source of inspiration for you to hop on the mat, get outside, go for a run, do whatever you need to turn inward and search for your inner sight. Chapters 4 and 6 will be all about creating a smooth lifestyle change that invites you to make meditation a regular practice. In these chapters, you'll be invited to create a plan that will stick by finding your intention and planning for any barriers you expect to face. You might be asking yourself why these chapters are split. That's because the 4th chapter will be about setting up your practice, and the 6th will deal with maintaining it. In the middle, chapter 5, is the actual substance of your practice. In this chapter, I will introduce 7 meditation styles that you can try out. There is something for everyone here, so whether you envision yourself taking a traditional route or are looking for a more modern practice, you'll have a guide to get you started. With all of that said, what you can expect to walk away with is actually quite a lot of information. You'll be something of an expert in the philosophy and history of the third eye and meditation practices. You'll know exactly what happens in your body when you connect with your third eye. You'll also have your own definition of the third eye that resonates the most with you, as well as a game plan to make meditation a part of your everyday life. Before you reach the end of this guide, you'll start to notice a significant change in the way that you see yourself and the world around you. You'll recognize new levels of patience, understanding, and empathy in yourself and others. You'll likely enjoy a new level of peace and tranquility, even if every part of your life remains exactly the same. And whether you come to admit it or not, you'll deserve all those feelings of accomplishment that come with attempting something difficult. Exploring your third eye can be challenging and frustrating, but if you stick with it, it will be incredibly rewarding and beneficial. You're here and you're ready to get started, so let's jump right in. Part 1. The Foundations of Meditation. The Definitions, the History, the Science. Chapter 1. The Tools of Meditation. Quick, think about the first thing that pops into your head when you hear the term third eye. Most likely, the image your mind conjured up was of a person with an eye in the middle of his or her forehead. Maybe it was a person sitting in a cross-legged position. Maybe this person was bathed in blue or violet. The majority of pictures that you would find online are psychedelic renditions of this image, complete with ethereal lights and geometric shapes. Seeing these pictures, you might conclude that finding your third eye is only possible with some kind of mind-altering substance, or, at the very least, some very drastic stretches of the imagination. For some people, this purple glowing being might resonate with their idea of enlightenment. For others, it's kind of ridiculous. In this section, we'll explore the varied conceptualizations of the third eye so that you can start to formulate your own idea about what this whole thing is really about. And once you've figured out what the third eye means to you, you'll be able to make it a central part of your meditation practice. Because if you're trying to look inward and all you can see is an image that makes you giggle or roll your eyes, you won't make any progress. There are a few other concepts that we're going to explore in this section, so that you can refer back to them as you start to develop a meditation practice. Just like everything else in this book, you can take what works for you and sidestep the things that don't. The chakras. We can't talk about the third eye without first explaining the meaning of chakras. You've probably heard this word if you've ever attended a yoga class or tried a guided meditation, and it's one of those words that is often thrown around without much explanation. To put it simply, your chakras are your sources of energy. They are not physical, tangible things in your body, although they have, over the years, been associated with certain organs. In traditional schools of thought, Chakras were imagined to be spherical or disc-like fountains of energy in the body, running from the base of your spine up through the crown of your head. And although the main theory that we focus on today points to 7 chakras, different groups believe in different numbers and different regions of the body. What's important for us, though, is going to be this 7-chakra system, made up of the root, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, and crown chakras. The idea is that when you start to turn our eye inward and take care of your body, you're also ensuring that those chakras are spinning happily away in alignment. When you neglect your physical well-being, however, you can imagine those chakras may start to slow or get jammed, similar to the way the gears on a clock might stop working. When that happens, you'll start to feel sluggish, sore, or out of sorts. You might even feel ill or get sick more often. At this point, a lot of people find it easy to brush the whole idea off as false. Spinning wheels of energy along your spine that can cause you to feel down or sick? It's a bit of a stretch in our world of science and medicine. Well, it can be helpful to think about some of the people in your life and ask yourself how you might characterize their energy levels. Maybe you know someone who exercises regularly, eats healthy, and gets the right amount of sleep every night. A doctor would say she's healthy, sure, but you would also notice that she seems to have more of a presence in the room that she's in. Perhaps she even gives off a certain shine. Whether you buy into the idea of energy sources, it's clear that she's enjoying a healthy amount of energy, and she's even radiating it outward. We all know people like this. We all also know, unfortunately, the people who are the opposite of this. Maybe you have that one coworker who seems to slouch over her desk or look down to the ground when she walks. This might be the person who doesn't speak up much during meetings and has a hard time finding joy in being at work at all. Unlike the person who might be more in tune with and loving towards her body, this coworker doesn't share energy with the world around her. In fact, she seems to be in need of some energy of her own. And if you think about it, you might have noticed this happening in yourself every once in a while. Have you ever had a lazy day in the house, only getting up to go to the fridge or grab your phone, and by the afternoon, you realized you were tired again? Maybe your shoulders felt a little bit achy and something just felt a little bit off in your body. Even if you've never been introduced to the concept of chakras in the past, you've likely noticed some of these trends. Day to day, we describe things as having a good energy or giving off a bad vibe. We say things like, listen to your gut or follow your heart. So, as you can see, there are ways that we already think about the energy and power in our bodies. We've just never conceptualized it in terms of chakras before. So, great. We've learned that your body contains 7 separate sources of power that become noticeable when you give them proper care and attention. But why do we need more than one? Why do they flow from the bottom up? Well, first of all, it's important to explain something about chakras. They are part of a fundamentally spiritual tradition. In the beginning of the practice, thousands of years ago, the true purpose of tapping into your chakras was to foster a connection between your body and a higher power. Think, for instance, of the significance of the chakras rooting up from your base to the top of your head. You start by focusing on your physical base, your roots, your strong foundation, and then you work up towards your crown, which is the closest to what humans have always associated with the world beyond. And why don't we just have one well of energy within us, as like the heart? Well, each of the chakras is responsible for a specific area of your being. The throat chakra is associated with your ability to speak and communicate. Your solar plexus chakra gives you the ability to hold firm to your beliefs and practice self-control. Understanding our energy in this way is helpful to be able to focus on one thing at a time. If we were to try to fix our bad energy all at once, we might find it overwhelming. Of course, as we'll see as we start practicing meditation, all of these things are connected, but it's much easier to have a starting point to focus on. Which brings us to our next concept, the third eye. The Ajna Chakra. The Ajna Chakra is the second to highest chakra of the seven, situated just under the crown chakra at the top of the head. This chakra is located in the space between your eyebrows, that space that we tend to massage when we're frustrated or tired. In terms of symbolism, the Ajna Chakra is pretty simple. Unlike the 1,000-petal lotus of the crown chakra, the Ajna Chakra is represented by a lotus with only 2 petals. At the center is a circle with an introverted triangle. There are a few different interpretations for the use of the triangle, but many believe it represents personal growth through knowledge or wisdom. In other words, while your journey started at the base or seed of the triangle, through acquisition of insight, your triangle grew up and out. The color associated with this chakra is indigo or violet, which is believed to be associated with wisdom. Of course, the third eye chakra is more than just a pretty symbol. As we'll explain in the next section on the history of chakras, the third eye in Hinduism and Buddhism has been described as insight, intuition, consciousness, knowledge, or enlightenment. In this spiritual sense, the third eye is a way to understand yourself. It is a practice of looking inward, and because these early concepts were rooted in spirituality, looking for an inner connection with the divine. In today's landscape, the third eye might be described simply as self-reflection. How often do you take the time to sit alone and think about what is happening in your body and in your mind? We tend to pay for someone like a therapist to help us explore the inner realm, and that can, of course, be very helpful. But we're also able to do a lot of the legwork on our own by simply tuning out the world around us and looking inward. Prana. Prana is the life force of the body, which is generally understood as the breath. It can also be understood as energy. Within the body, during meditation, there's not really a distinction between the two. You inhale and radiate energy throughout the body. Interestingly, the marriage of breath and energy isn't only found in these early Hindu traditions. For the Greeks, the term inspire meant to breathe into. The idea was that a divine being could breathe energy, life, or the will to do something into a person. In our meditation practice, we're looking to rebuild energy by breathing it in. Pranayama. In Sanskrit, pranayama breaks down into the roots prana and ayama, which mean life force and extend. Pranayama, then, is the practice of extending or expanding your life force, or breath. When you focus on elongating your inhalations and exhalations, you'll notice that the world around you also seems to slow, and your perspective of it changes. As we'll explore later on, there are mental and physical benefits of simply drawing out or extending your breathing. It's no wonder, as we dive deeper into our search for the third eye, that pranayama is essential for our meditation practice. Mantras. If you've ever been asked to say a mantra without being totally sure of what that meant, you probably didn't get the most out of the practice. Mantras are often used in yoga practices and meditations without proper introduction, which makes the whole thing feel a little forced and awkward. The word mantra can be broken down into its 2 fundamental syllables, man, which in Sanskrit means to think, and tra, or to liberate. So, Through mantras, you're able to liberate yourself by thinking actively instead of passively. Generally, we allow our thoughts to take whatever direction they want to. Sometimes, usually when we're stressed, it may seem like we're completely unable to change our thoughts, calm them down, or turn them off. But this doesn't just happen when we're upset. The thinking brain has a lot of power over us. What a mantra can do for you, then, is to give you back the reins through intentional thinking. By focusing on one word or phrase, you're able to quiet the world around you and the thoughts within you. It's a little bit like what would happen if someone banged a gong in a shopping mall. Most likely, everyone would stop what they were doing to look at who's making the noise. Traditionally, the mantras used for the chakra system consisted of just one word. These are called biha mantras, or seed mantras, and there's a different sound for each of the 7 chakras. Lam, root; Vam, sacral; Ram, solar plexus; Yam, heart; Ham, throat; Sham, third eye; Am, crown. Actually, the third eye and the crown chakras are designated more than one biha mantra, so you can choose which one works best for you. In addition to Sham, you might also use Aum or Om. Each of the sounds in these mantras are pronounced as you exhale, so each letter gets its own attention. You might also use Aum or Om. First Ah, as in Ah, U as in bloom, and as if you're agreeing with someone. If you just tried this out loud or even in your head, you probably notice that this requires you to elongate your breath. In order to really feel each of the letters as a separate syllable, you're forced to slow down and really consider the different sounds. At the same time, these sounds conjure up vibrations in different areas of the chest, throat, mouth, nose, in the space between your eyes. The ah is felt in the back of the mouth and throat. The oo starts to vibrate in the lungs. The brings sensation to the lips and muscles of the face. Together, they culminate in a vibrating sensation throughout your skull, which will lead to an awareness in the area of the third eye. It's pretty amazing that a single word can require so much of your attention, which is exactly why mantras are so useful for meditation. But if you don't like the biha mantras, that's okay too. A mantra doesn't have to focus so much on physical vibration. A mantra can also be a simple phrase that you say over and over out loud or in your head. Some common ones for the third eye might be, I see, I explore, I am open, I am within. And while the idea is to make the mantra the centerpiece of the meditation, we all know that's not always possible. Our thoughts will inevitably seep back in and try to retake the reins. At that point, you can simply bang the gong again by saying the mantra. Mudras. A mudra is a hand position that you can use in meditation in order to be more conscious about energy flow. Perhaps that sounds silly now, but just try one out for kicks and giggles. Try the Gyan mudra, which is probably the most recognizable one in mainstream society. This mudra is achieved by placing your hand palm up and fingers extended on your thigh, as if you were asking someone to place something inside of you or hold hands with you. Next, you're going to lightly touch your forefinger and thumb, as if you were holding a very delicate leaf or flower between your fingers. The other 3 fingers are actively extended. What may have seemed like a simple gesture actually takes a bit of concentration and energy when you try it for yourself, which makes it a great tool for meditation. And if you're not totally into the Gyan mudra, which is most closely associated with the root chakra, there are a number of others. The main mudra for an ajna-focused practice is the Kalasavari mudra, which you can make by doing the following. 1. Hold your hands up with palms facing each other, thumbs closest to you. 2. Next, curl your fingers towards each other so that the middle segments of your fingers are touching each other. 3. Bring the prints of your thumb together and down so that you make the shape of a heart. 4. Lift up your middle fingers to make a steeple. 5. You can hold the pose in front of your third eye. There are hundreds of mudras out there, so you can try a few and see which one is most comfortable and powerful for you. At this point, maybe you're questioning why you need a mudra at all. Well, just like everything else in this guide, the honest answer is you don't. Think of the mudra as a tool for your meditation practice, not a requirement. So, if you're asking how a mudra can add to your meditation practice, then maybe it would help to think more about the flow of energy within you. You'll notice that many of the mudras incorporate a circle or triangle, whereas others invite you to extend your fingers out or up. Think about the tone that sets in terms of energy. Are you at a place in your meditation that you would like to harness energy? Maybe you choose a mudra that incorporates a loop so that your prana remains part of the circular flow within you. Or, are you looking to radiate your energy out? In that case, maybe you choose a mudra that is open and expansive. Tantra. The next definition we should explore is the idea of Tantra. Now, hold on. I know that in modern society, Tantra has become a stand-in term for sexual experiences, but that's not actually the whole historical picture. Traditionally, Tantra was the word used to describe the physical practices used to get in touch with the chakras. Yoga is the most well-known tantric practice, which combines physical poses and the breath in order to facilitate an inward focus. Broken down, the word Tantra in Sanskrit refers again to tra, or liberation, and tan, or expansion. In essence, Tantra allows you to rely on your physical body to explore your internal self as well as the higher power. Just as a mantra is meant to liberate you from certain thought patterns that prevent you from entering a state of meditation, Tantra is meant to liberate you from the physical restrictions that may block you from reaching a meditative state. Through stretching, exercise, and healthy foods, in other words, you can achieve a physical state that is beyond simply existing in your body. It's another way to expand your being to get closer to the spiritually divine. Within this realm of Tantra, you'll hear a lot about asana, which, today, generally refers to a yoga pose. Originally, asana referred to a seated position that would prepare a person for meditation, but nowadays, people interpret the asanas a bit differently. Whereas traditionally, a person attempting meditation may sit in a single pose for a long period of time, modern yoga classes focus on a flow from one asana to the next in a more fluid practice. No matter how you use the asanas, the important thing is the way that the pose makes you feel. In other words, it's not that you're able to contort your body into the perfect shape, but rather that the poses invite you to become more aware of and caring towards the body. By increasing this level of mindfulness, you prepare yourself for the next level, meditation. And yes, there is a small portion of tantric teachings that focuses on sexuality as a tool for these purposes, but that's not going to be our focus here. When I refer to Tantra, I simply mean any physical practice, primarily yoga, that can lead to an opening of the third eye. Dhyana. Dhyana is the Sanskrit word for meditation, but we have to be clear about what that means. That's because the word meditation gets thrown around a lot, but it actually means something very specific. Meditation is not simply thinking about something or thinking of nothing or sitting in uncomfortable positions for hours on end. Meditation is an abstract concept of awareness. According to early teachings of yoga, meditation is something only achieved after all other preparatory exercises, such as the yoga poses, controlling of the breathing, and use of the mantras. If you've never done meditation, it can be tricky to define, but essentially, meditation is achieved when the distinction between you and your perceived self disappears. In other words, you stop thinking about yourself sitting in the lotus pose. You sit in the lotus pose. You might think about it like an extreme form of being present. The past, the future, even conceptualizations about the present fall away. You simply are. It is in this state that it is believed that the third eye becomes active. In meditation, you are able to soak up all of the internal knowledge that is hidden from you when your mind is normally filled with everyday responsibilities. This is the practice we're going to strive for in this guide. Using everything that we've introduced so far, or the tools that we can use to liberate us from our thinking patterns and physical restraints, we're going to attempt dhyana. Summing it up. In this section, we covered some of the more basic concepts that you'll rely on to build your meditation practice. You can think of everything on this list as a tool that will help you reach the final stage of meditation. If you find that sitting in an asana helps you to achieve stillness and inward reflection, do that. If you find pranayama useful, explore that. For many of us, the best way to start out is a combination of a few different practices explained here, so feel free to refer back to this list as you begin searching for what works best for you. Here's a quick reference list. Chakra. 7 energy centers in the body that begin at the base of the spine and follow a straight line up through to the crown of the head. Without proper care, they become sluggish and can leave you feeling unwell. Ajna, third eye, chakra. The 6th chakra is located between the eyebrows and is commonly symbolized by a 2-petal indigo lotus. The Ajna chakra is associated with wisdom, intention, and self-reflection. Prana, life force, energy, or breath. Pranayama, broken down into prana, or life force, and ayana, or extend. Pranayama refers to the practice of expanding or extending the life force by controlling the breath. Mantra, a practice that roots from liberation and thought. Mantras are single words or short phrases that can be recited during meditation to disrupt regular thought patterns and tune out external stimuli. Mantras can produce physical sensations or be purely mental and motivational. Biha mantras. Literally seed mantras, these are one-word audibles that are associated with the 7 chakras. The Biha mantra for Ajna is Aum, Kasham, or Sham. Each letter is enunciated while you exhale, so that you can focus on the vibrations and sensations throughout the body. Mudras, hand gestures that are used in meditation to rein in energy. Tantra, meaning liberation and expansion. Tantra is the practice of using the physical body to connect to the 7 chakras. This can be done through a number of different pathways, including yoga, mindfulness, interpersonal connection, exercise, and nutrition. Dhyana, Sanskrit for meditation. This phrase refers specifically to the stage in a meditation practice in which the participant is able to find unity between himself and his practice. There is no distinction between the act and the person doing the act. More resources. More on chakras. www.hinduwebsite.com www.hinduhumanrights.info, www.indigomassagetherapy.com, www.sacredcenters.com, www.yogaoutlet.com, and www.mindbodygreen.com. More on the sixth chakra, the third eye. www.mindbodygreen.com, www.sivasakti.com, www.tantra-kundalini.com, www.chakras.info. More on pranayama. www.yogajournal.com. More on mantra. www.insightstate.com, www.speakingtree.in, www.simonheather.co.uk, www.ar-yoga.com, and www.mindbodygreen.com. More on mudras. www.detector.com, www.katyayoga.com, and www.yogapedia.com. More on Tantra. www.gaia.com, and www.yogapedia.com. And more on Dhyana. www.eckhartyoga.com, and www.yogapedia.com. Chapter 2. A Short History Lesson. As popular as third eye meditation has become in Western culture, it can be easy to forget that this is actually a very old practice. And you might be wondering why I'm stepping on the brakes before talking about your meditation practice to dive into the history. But in order to really understand what third eye meditation is and why it exists, a brief explanation of the roots of the practice is necessary. In this section, you'll start to gain a deeper appreciation for meditation and, hopefully, feel like a part of a larger community. This section is also intended to address a very real barrier that many people face when they start out with a meditation practice: authenticity. As someone in the Western world, you might have wondered whether you can respectfully practice meditation, or if you're even doing it right. If you've tried to find the answers online, you've probably encountered a lot of people loudly voicing their opinions about the right way to practice yoga, or the right way to practice meditation, or what is most true to the ancient scriptures. There are scholars bickering with yogis, bickering with Hindus about which system is most traditional and authentic. And while it's important to realize that the practices we have in the Western world have been often mistranslated and adapted to fit into new cultural understandings, it's possible to find what works for you while also respecting the roots. Meditation practices are not about exclusion, and literally every person can benefit from a meditation practice. But your practice will undoubtedly be more fulfilling when you take the time to learn about where this all comes from. So, let's get into it. The Vedas. There are people who spend their entire lives reading and interpreting the Vedas, but for our purposes, you just need to know that it's a very important text in Hinduism. It's not clear just how long the teachings within the Vedas have been around as part of the oral tradition, but it is believed that they were committed to paper sometime around 1500 BC. The Vedas, of which there were 4, consisted of religious and spiritual teachings, hymns, and rich descriptions of life at the time for Hindus in India. The word Veda means knowledge or wisdom, and these texts were used to help guide people through all aspects of their lives. While our modern ideas about yoga, meditation, and chakras can't be found in the Vedas themselves, this text laid the foundation for an understanding of the self in a spiritual sense. It is from these early teachings about how one should conduct oneself spiritually, using hymns, rituals, mantras, and more, that we have our modern-day practices. Patanjali's 8 Limbs of Yoga. Patanjali was a sage that may have lived sometime around 200 BC. Not very much is known about this person, other than the various mythologies about his origins as a yoga teacher. But whether he arrived as an incarnation of an ancient serpentine god, as one story tells, or he was the son of a virgin mother, as in another tale, the only thing we know for sure about Patanjali is that he wrote a text called the 8 Limbs of Yoga. In his writing, Patanjali described the theory of yoga as much more than simply perfecting a down dog or warrior pose. Instead, he thought of yoga as an entire way of living, from self-control and diligence to meditation. Yoga today looks very different from Patanjali's writings, but we can still credit him with creating the most important guide to practicing yoga and meditation in existence. He broke down yoga into the following 8 categories: Yama, integrity and ethics; Niyama, rituals and self-discipline; Asana, the physical poses; Pranayama, breath control; Pratyahara, looking inward; Dharana, concentration; Dhyana, meditation; Samadhi, complete unity. We mentioned some of these limbs in our introductory review of the tools of meditation, but as you can see, the original teachings of yoga consisted of a regulated lifestyle. If you're interested in exploring this more holistic practice, the 8 Limbs of Yoga is a great starting point. For the purposes of our guide, however, we'll stick to the meditation portion. Meditation in Buddhism. Everything that we've reviewed so far has had to do with ancient Hindu traditions, and maybe this surprised you a bit. Isn't Buddhism the source of meditation and all of that enlightenment stuff? Well, both Buddhism and Hinduism began in the subcontinent of India, and both practice meditation, but there are differences in philosophy and ritual. Buddhism, for instance, uses its own means of entering a meditative state, using different mantras and focal points than Hindu meditation. You also won't typically find a focus on chakras, yoga, or the wide variety of Biha mantras. Because this guide is dedicated to the Ajna chakra, we won't delve too much into Buddhist meditation. That said, you can easily keep the third eye in mind while practicing Buddhist meditation. The journey is yours, so follow the teachings that make the most sense to you. Modern-day meditation. Clearly, the amount of time that has passed between the first writings of the Veda and today have made for plenty of different interpretations of meditation. In the Western world, it's important to remember that the translation from Sanskrit to English, or Spanish, or German has inevitably created some confusion. Often, when British scholars in India attempted to translate the sacred texts, they did so through their own cultural lens. Otherwise, those practices never would have been understood in places like Europe. While meditation practices were being changed and adapted in Europe, history was changing them in India as well. Over the generations, new interpretations were made, and old ones became archaic. With each new guru that entered the scene, things like yoga and the ideas about chakras changed ever so slightly. That's not to say that we should ditch everything that meditation has come to mean in the Western world. It just means that when we talk about meditation practices, we should acknowledge that there are many interpretations of an ancient practice, and that no one has all of the answers. It's a bit like Shakespeare. His plays don't reflect life today, but that doesn't mean that we can't still enjoy them by adapting them slightly, or even sometimes creatively, to our modern world. That's actually good news for us, because it allows us to really cater our meditation practice to our own specific needs. It's this diversity in thought that allows some to follow the spiritual journey in much the same way that it was in the foundational texts. For others, the meditation symbolizes something more personal, like self-reflection or a way to find peace in a chaotic world. In other words, the generations and generations of changes have made meditation accessible to everyone. That is a good thing. One thing to watch out for, of course, is any practice that tries to charge you more for authenticity. There have been plenty of companies designed to give you the most traditional experience, complete with retreats and certifications and the rest. Obviously, everyone needs to make a living to survive. But if you feel that you're getting trapped in a program that is charging much more than other companies with false promises of authenticity, it's best to be wary. Meditation is about your personal journey. Don't get caught in the mindset that if you spend more money, you'll be able to find your third eye easier. Summing it up, understanding the history of meditation can enhance your practice by giving you the necessary background to feel humble, connected, and appreciative of the many generations that came before you. Thousands of years ago, there were people looking for a way to understand themselves and the world around them, and meditation continues to be an effective way to do that. In this section, we talked about two foundations of meditative practice, Hinduism and Buddhism. But while these traditions took place in India, it's interesting to note that this type of controlled breathing and management of thoughts can be found in a number of other civilizations and religions as well. Meditative practices can be found in Judaism and Islam. Kemetic yoga is a practice that comes from Egypt, and meditation practices from this civilization promoted connection with ancestors. Indigenous cultures in North, Central, and South America participated in their own versions of meditation. There are even those who make links between the Christian practices of prayer with meditation, since it invites the participant to sit quietly in thought while searching for a connection with a higher power. Clearly, meditation has served us well as a species, regardless of where we find ourselves in the world. And in the next section, we'll discuss what modern science has to say about meditation. Resources. More on the Vedas. www.krishna.com. www.pluralism.org. www.nhsf.org.uk. www.indianmirror.com. More on the 8 limbs of yoga. www.yogajournal.com. More on Buddhist meditation. www.diamondway-buddhism.org. And more on multicultural examples of meditation. www.gaia.com and www.psychologytoday.com. Chapter 3. The Neuroscience of Meditation. I want you to think, if you will, about the last time that someone comforted you. What did this person say that made you feel better? What was their body language like? What was so effective about the way that they treated you? I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it wasn't because this person shouted at you to stop crying and pick yourself up. They probably didn't tell you to get over it. More likely, this person had a calm demeanor and a low voice. Maybe he or she put a hand on your shoulder or gave you a hug. And maybe this person validated your feelings and invited you to sit with those emotions and feel what you needed to feel. For some reason, this way of dealing with a person who is emotionally distressed is extremely effective. A low, calm voice makes us feel calm. It allows us to breathe more slowly and fully. Positive and comforting physical touch can encourage us to come into the present moment instead of that whirlwind of thoughts and emotions raging inside us. And being invited to sit with our emotions is crucial, and something that we're going to loop back to in our discussion on mindfulness. When we try to force ourselves into thinking about something else, or in other words, get over it, or try to think of something happy, we inevitably will come back to whatever upset us in the first place. But when we're able to confront our feelings, we end up feeling more in control, and as a result, calmer. The amazing aspect of this that we're going to explore here is that all of these things are happening on a neurobiological level. When someone makes us feel calm, it takes us out of our fight, flight, freeze mode. When we breathe deep, the stress hormones in our brains diminish. When we think about our feelings objectively, we're able to disrupt the tendency to link thoughts to emotions and start problem-solving calmly. All of this happens on a neurochemical level. So, what does this have to do with meditation? Well, I asked you to think of an example of a time when another person helped you to calm down. But through a regular practice of meditation, you're going to learn how to become that person for yourself. Not just in order to make yourself feel better when you're upset, but also to feel calmer and more focused overall. The basics. Before we start talking about how meditation can improve your neurological functioning, it's important to explain a few things about brain function. And we won't get into too much science, but suffice to say that everything that happens within the body, from cell growth to digestion, to emotions, to muscle movements, happen because of the chemicals released in the brain. For many years, we had no idea how these chemicals worked, or how we might influence their production and restriction in order to control certain bodily functions. But now, we know a lot more about the brain than before, and a lot of this research has explored cognition, or our thoughts, and emotions. To start, let's take a look at the medial prefrontal cortex. This is the region in your brain responsible for regulating emotional responses and assigning emotions to memory. In other words, this is the area of the brain that determines the way that we react to a certain event. If I go for a walk in the woods, for example, and get eaten alive by mosquitoes, my reaction is going to depend on the activity in the medial prefrontal cortex. Maybe I'm the kind of person that doesn't really get angry about it, but instead looks for the good aspects of the walk, like the blooming wildflowers or nice weather. If my medial prefrontal cortex works differently, on the other hand, I might get really bothered by all those mosquito bites, and not remember anything about the trip to the woods other than my discomfort and annoyance. This emotional processing of information is very important to the way that we choose to live our lives, because we're able to make behavior decisions in response to that emotional coding. In that same example, if the prefrontal cortex reaction was mild, my behavior change might be to start carrying bug spray around with me, or wearing long-sleeve shirts. Or, if getting bitten by mosquitoes really bothered me, my behavior change might be more drastic. Maybe I avoid that part of the woods and tell all my friends not to go there. And this is a bit of a frivolous example, but imagine how important this processing becomes when we're talking about more consequential events. Remember back to a poignant, embarrassing memory from childhood, or how you felt when you weren't hired for a job, or when you went through a breakup. Likely, these were memories that your medial prefrontal cortex processed and attached emotional meaning to. So much so that you probably felt a twinge of emotional pain just at the mention of them here. There's another function of the prefrontal cortex that is going to be really interesting to our discussion of meditation. Focus. When you're sitting down to write out a budget, but there are a million things going on around you, or you're talking on the phone on a busy street, it's your prefrontal cortex that is charged with drowning out all the extra distractions so that you can concentrate on what is important in the moment. Clearly, this part of the brain has a lot of responsibility, which is why the recent research into the effects of meditation on prefrontal cortex functioning is so exciting. But before we get into that, there are a few other regions of the brain that are also crucial. Next, let's take a look at the amygdala. This is the region of the brain associated with the flight, fight, freeze response to stress. Most of us are familiar with this response because it can be triggered by pretty small stimuli. But do you know what happens on a neurological level when the amygdala kicks in? Without getting too technical here, a stress response works by shutting down the cognitive brain, so that all of your resources can go towards fighting the enemy or fleeing the scene. That's important, so I'm going to say it again. When you undergo a stressful situation, the thinking brain shuts down. While this response was a way for us to survive the early days of our existence with tangible threats like animals, storms, and violent enemies, our amygdala will respond nowadays to pretty much any stressful event, giving a presentation at work, or having an argument with your partner. When we allow our stress levels to rage uninhibited, there is a traceable wear and tear effect on our bodies, increasing our risk for heart problems, respiratory issues, headaches, migraines, and musculoskeletal breakdown. Alright, so here's what we know so far. The medial prefrontal cortex deals with emotions, memory, and concentration, and the amygdala deals with stress and fear. There's also another player here, the lateral prefrontal cortex, that has to do with rational thinking and problem solving. As it goes, the connection between the medial prefrontal cortex and the amygdala are very strong, and there's an evolutionary reason for that. In order to survive, we need to remember and protect ourselves from the things that trigger fear and stress in us. We can all agree there's a benefit to that. But oftentimes, the things that cause us fear can actually be rationalized away. And our inability to do so starts to be counterintuitive. When we freak out before walking into a job interview because our medial prefrontal cortex is reminding us of all those times that we didn't do well at this task before, the amygdala might kick in and all of our brain's energy goes towards the fight, flight, freeze mode. Maybe our heart starts to race and we have a harder time answering questions. All we're thinking about is how quickly we can get through this so that we can leave. In instances like this, a stronger connection between the medial and the lateral prefrontal cortexes would be helpful. Luckily, you can actually train yourself to send more blood to the lateral prefrontal cortex simply by reminding yourself to relax and maybe giving yourself a pep talk about why you're qualified for the job. By calming the amygdala and inviting yourself to think rationally, you're able to steer your brain away from the medial prefrontal cortex, amygdala frenzy. And finally, before we talk about meditation, the last region of the brain we're going to talk about here is the pineal gland, which for centuries has been associated with the third eye. It is a pine cone-shaped gland located in the center of the brain, nestled between the two hemispheres. The pineal gland is responsible for secreting a number of different hormones that are critical to maintaining mentally and physically healthy lives. One of the most important is melatonin, which controls our circadian rhythms, or the internal clock that helps us wake up in the morning and go to sleep at night. Without proper functioning of this gland, we are at higher risk for depression and anxiety. Melatonin also aids our immune system by protecting white blood cells from radiation, which is amazing, considering that the pineal gland filters more blood than most other regions of the body. Traditionally, the pineal gland was associated with vision and sight, and today's science shows that might be closer to the truth than we expected. On the one hand, the pineal gland functions through the perception of light, so it does see in the sense that it knows when to produce melatonin and when not to. More interestingly, though, the pineal gland is responsible for secreting a hormone called DMT, which may allow us to see images in our dreams, in near-death experiences, and possibly in meditation. What happens with meditation? Now that we have a basic understanding of some key neurological functions dealing with emotional regulation, stress, and sleep, how does all of this change with meditation? Well, with the rise in popularity of meditation practices has come a wave of research on the subject, but we're still in the beginning stages of scientific research. That means that while you start out your meditation practice, you'll be able to read more and more new studies confirming what you'll know to be true. Still, the information out there at this point is incredibly interesting, so let's review some of it. Disrupting the fight, flight, freeze mode. First, let's go back to the prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain that deals with many cognitive functions, from assigning emotion to memories and helping us to focus on the task at hand. For people who don't have a meditation practice, the connection between the amygdala and this region of the brain is strong. But what scientists have found is that through a regular mindfulness practice, this connection starts to become weaker. That gives us more of a change to listen to what the lateral prefrontal cortex is telling us before we fall into the fight, flight, freeze cycle. After practicing meditation for a while, you might still feel a twinge of anxiety or fear when you face stress, but you won't immediately have an emotional reaction that allows the cycle to continue. That freedom from becoming emotionally overwhelmed gives you the space to think clearly about what is happening. What might this look like in action? Think about how you might respond to getting yelled at by your boss. Maybe you forgot to include something on a report, and now your boss is angry and upset with you. In this moment, you might feel shame, embarrassment, fear, defensiveness, or reciprocal anger. These emotions might cause you to act out in a maladaptive way. Maybe you shout back, storm out, or refuse to admit that you did anything wrong. Maybe you go back to your desk and find that it's impossible to continue working because you're unfocused and anxious. After work, the emotions might continue to bother you. Maybe you find yourself honking and shouting at other drivers. Maybe you're short with your loved ones. But consider what a meditation practice could provide you by stripping away that emotional reaction. The moment that your boss starts yelling at you, your mind won't go so quickly and forcefully to an emotional place. Instead, you'll be able to take a step back and look at the situation objectively. You made a mistake, just like everyone makes mistakes. The best solution is to make things right if possible, and continue working to the best of your ability. You might also consider that your boss is overreacting, and that probably has nothing to do with you. Perhaps he had a rough morning. Perhaps he's new, and he feels like he needs to come off as strong and stern. Perhaps he's just kind of a jerk, because he had bosses before him who treated him poorly. That doesn't mean that you're giving your boss an excuse to make you feel bad. But when you start to think about how his actions may be unrelated to you, you're better able to protect yourself from the stress of being yelled at. And when you forgive yourself for making a mistake by reminding yourself that everyone makes mistakes sometimes, you're better able to come up with solutions for the future. That's a pretty amazing benefit of meditation. At this point, though, you might have trouble believing that your brain could be so easily tricked into replacing an emotional response with a rational one. Well, even if you consider yourself to be a stubborn person, the truth is, you can rewire your brain and change your brain structure. This is due to neuroplasticity, or your brain's ability to weed out unnecessary neural pathways and create new, useful ones. What's important to remember is that every pathway in your brain is there for a reason. Maybe you're afraid of riding a bicycle because way back in your memory, you'll never forget that time you fell off your bike. Maybe you get angry when someone criticizes you because you once had to fight a bully. As complex as the brain is, we're probably never going to be able to trace back our actions to the single moment they were coded in the brain as necessary. But what we can do is introduce new neural pathways that are more helpful for us in the present day. And the truth is, this process isn't going to happen overnight. As you've probably gleaned so far, setting up a meditation practice takes time, and you might have to utilize a few different tools in order to stick with it and reap the benefits. Trauma or mental illness. This ability to weaken the connection between the amygdala and the medial prefrontal cortex isn't just helpful in small, stressful encounters. In fact, scientists have been looking into how meditation can help people who have experienced a traumatic event or suffer from certain mental illnesses such as depression and anxiety disorders. For people who underwent a traumatic experience that continues to prevent them from living a normal life, meditation can be a useful therapeutic technique. That's because for people with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, the amygdala goes into the overdrive, and the rational functions of the prefrontal cortex have a very difficult time getting through. Mindfulness meditation forces the brain to send more energy to the areas of the prefrontal cortex that could help to diffuse the situation. The result of this is that over time, when the person experiencing PTSD gets triggered by something that would cause their symptoms to come back, the brain learns that there is another option other than the fight, flight, freeze response. Meditation has been used similarly to help combat negative thought patterns in people with depression and invite people with general anxiety to rely more on the rational prefrontal cortex. Focus and energy. Another amazing benefit of meditation is increased focus. When you're able to influence the brain to send more resources to the lateral prefrontal cortex instead of the regions of the brain dealing with emotion and stress, the brain will start to strengthen those neural pathways that have to do with attention and concentration. Not only will you be less likely to respond emotionally to situations, but you'll also be able to address them with a heightened sense of clarity because of the lateral prefrontal cortex's ability to phase out all unnecessary stimuli. Imagine, for a moment, the power of that. What that means is that you can foster your own sense of focus and productivity, no matter what external stimuli life throws at you. If your office is filled with negative people who constantly berate you, you'll wow everyone with your sense of zen and ability to ignore their negative comments. If you're under a deadline and the house is overwhelmingly loud and crowded, you'll be able to create your own zone of peace and focus. How about your energy levels? Well, when you train your brain not to send your energy reserves to unnecessary stimuli and you stop resorting to the stress response in the amygdala, you're going to be surprised by how energized you feel. And, of course, don't forget about the pineal gland, that tangible ajna chakra. Meditation allows you to stop ruminating on emotional experiences so that your brain can focus more of its energy on the pineal gland. The end result will be better, more regular sleep, which will give you more energy during the day. Insight and reflection. Considering all of these benefits of regular meditation, How much can we bridge the neuroscience and the concept of the third eye chakra? Well, remember that the Ajna chakra has always been associated with wisdom, knowledge, self-reflection, vision, and insight. It is a way to see ourselves by turning our gaze inward. Instead of reacting to the world, we shut out the world and explore the self. Through meditation, we're able to shut off the processes that prevent us from being able to do this internal exploration. By diminishing the power of the stress responses and emotional responses in the brain, we're able to see ourselves more objectively and non-judgmentally. We're able to just be. That's always been a cornerstone of Ajna meditation. But now, because of modern science, we have a few research studies to add more legitimacy to the practice. And before we move on from the neuroscience of meditation, we can't ignore that finding about DMT, or dimethyltryptamine. This endorphin is highest when we sleep, but it can also be triggered by meditation when we are in a calm state akin to sleeping. Remember, what this chemical does is to trigger images and new ways of seeing things. Have you ever had a dream that inspired you when you woke up? Imagine being able to harness that sensation through meditation. In this way, a regular practice can actually take us to another level of consciousness. Physical benefits. Even though we've been talking about the ways meditation can improve your mental well-being and cognitive function, there are also immense benefits for your physical body as well. The most important is the minimization of the amygdala stress response. Like I mentioned before, chronic stress can lead to a myriad of negative outcomes in virtually every part of the body, so any practice that can prevent that is going to be amazing for your overall health. Added to that is the increased regularity of the pineal gland, which can help you sleep better. The body performs critical regenerative functions during sleep, which can improve immunity and aid in cell regrowth. Summing it up. Okay, that was a really dense chapter on neuroscience, but we can break it down into a simple explanation. A brain without meditation functions by using tried and true neural pathways that may or may not be maladaptive, relying heavily on the amygdala and medial prefrontal cortex to assess danger and deal with stress, turning to the lateral prefrontal cortex for rational thinking only when stress hasn't hijacked the system, attempting to juggle external stimuli to focus on a specific task, and allowing the pineal gland to regulate sleep patterns, as well as mental wellness, based on the intake of sunlight. A brain with regular meditation practices functions by exploring new neural pathways and weeding out maladaptive ones, weakening the connection between the amygdala and medial prefrontal cortex to give a bigger role to the lateral prefrontal cortex, giving space to more rational thinking that is uninhibited by external stimuli, and increasing melatonin and endorphins to increase a sense of calm, aid in sleep, and create the perfect internal environment for self-exploration and enlightenment. Many of the people I've met who were unconvinced of the benefits of meditation had written off the practice because of a lack of evidence. Well, luckily, we now live in a time when science is finally catching up with what yogis have known for generations. What we have traditionally referred to as a journey to open the third eye can now also refer to a neurobiological process in which the brain's neurons are rewired to promote tranquility and rationality. Science is finally realizing that the end result of this third eye exploration is an individual who is more insightful, intentional, and objective because of a scientific process. Resources. More on neurobiology in general. www.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. More on the prefrontal cortex. www.chopra.com, www.inc.com, www.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov, and www.inside-the-brain.com. More on stress. www.apa.org. More on trauma. www.mindful.org, www.psychologytoday.com. More on the amygdala. www.dmtmeditation.wordpress.com, www.apa.com, www.psychologytoday.com, and www.blogs.scientificamerican.com. And more on the pineal gland. www.consciouslifestylemag.com, www.medicalnewstoday.com, www.brainworldmagazine.com, and www.endocrineweb.com. Part 2. Putting it to work. Everything you need to know about setting up a successful meditation practice. Chapter 4. Setting up a system for meditation. So far in this guide, you've learned quite a bit about meditation. In fact, you've learned pretty much everything there is to know about meditation, except for, well, how to do it. And, okay, maybe we're not quite to the point that you're going to be sitting on a mat with the incense burning and the meditation music playing softly in the background. This section, though, is integral to setting up a sustainable plan for incorporating meditation into your daily life. You might be thinking, why is it so important to set up a plan anyway? Maybe you've already downloaded the perfect meditation app, and you know for sure that you're going to stick with it because, after all, you paid for the subscription. Well, although your intentions to get it are good, I've seen time and again how a strong desire to try out meditation can fizzle into an afterthought. The people who started off thinking, I'll create a meditation practice by sheer determination and stubbornness, are often the ones that struggle to keep their practice regular. On the other hand, you can set yourself up for success by creating a reasonable, flexible plan for meditation. Think of it as a spiritual guide, a journey, a path to enlightenment, or, simply, a goal plan. Whatever you call it, you'll use this plan as a meditation journey, as well as a progress tracker. It should be something visual like a calendar, or a physical journey that will keep you motivated and allow you to see your accomplishments and growth. Set your intention. Intentions are crucial for meditation. Without them, your practice will be untethered and unfocused. Figuring out your intention will not only give you a sense of being grounded, but it will also remind you why you started meditating when things got rough. In other words, when you're sitting on your mat and just can't seem to rein in your thoughts and you're on the verge of giving up for the day, simply reminding yourself of your intention will give you the motivation to stick with it. So, how do you set a meaningful intention? Well, this is your meditation practice. I can't tell you why you're here, but if you're looking for some inspiration, here are a few intentions I hear often. I want to open my third mind so that I can better understand myself. I want a different perspective. I want to hear my inner voice. I want to enjoy peace of mind. I want to treat myself with love to raise my expectation for how others treat me. I want to be free, even momentarily, from pain. I want to control my emotions better for myself and my family. By taking care of my ajna, I want to inspire my children to take care of themselves. Over time, your intention may change, and that's healthy. After all, opening up your ajna is about understanding yourself better, so the more that you learn, the more you can fine-tune your intention. Getting started. How often should you start off meditating? There are plenty of guides out there that encourage you to start off with meditation every morning, but I think that's actually a bit overwhelming for newcomers. At the beginning, meditation takes a lot of mental energy, and it can get tiring when you try to force yourself into a meditation first thing in the morning. For people who have never meditated or never had a regular meditation practice, I recommend meditating for a short period of time, no more than 5 minutes, 3 times over the course of 7 days. Pick a day that you're going to do it in the morning, another day to practice midday, and a third to practice at night. This is going to help you figure out what time of day your mind is naturally more inclined to practice meditation, but it's also going to give you a sense of your own schedule. You may think that you can practice on your lunch breaks, but then when you try for the first time, you realize just how frequently you get interrupted. You might also try practicing on a busy day, and a weekend or day off. This will help you figure out if practicing meditation when your day is stressful is actually helpful, or just feels like another thing to add to your plate. If it's the latter, don't force it. Just find a better day to practice, like the weekend. The length of these early meditation trials is also important. It can be easy, when you're just starting out, to get really excited about putting your new meditation room to good use by forcing yourself to sit for long periods of time. But, as you'll realize about 30 seconds into your first attempt at meditation, it is not that simple. 5 minutes can even be a bit of a stretch at the beginning, so carve out 5 minutes of uninterrupted time, but don't beat yourself up if you don't reach the full time. After your first week of meditation trials, you can decide what seems like a reasonable meditation schedule moving forward. Don't feel obligated to increase the amount of times you meditate per week or elongate the session too quickly. This journey is about you, so if you need to start slow, and stay slow for that matter, you should do what's best for you. Eventually, your mind is going to become more accustomed to the practice of meditation, and you'll feel more comfortable adding another 30 seconds or a few minutes onto your meditation session. But it should happen when you're comfortable. Deciding on going solo or taking a class. For some, the idea of sitting in a room with other people meditating sounds uncomfortable and maybe distracting. For others, joining a group or even meditating with a close friend or loved one can provide a feeling of support and solidarity. Feel free to try both and see which one is most comfortable. You might also choose to follow a guide or set up a meditation practice on your own. My personal recommendation is that you start out with a guru, someone who can encourage you and offer you tips. Then, over time, when you've been practicing for a while, you might take back the reins and lead your own meditation practice. Journaling. Meditation journaling doesn't have to consist of long passages about the things you saw during the session, or how close you feel to nirvana. Unless you want it to be. More power to you. For most of us, though, effective meditation journaling can be as simple as jotting down the time and length of the session, a quick summary, and perhaps a rating on how it went. If you found a particular mantra useful, you might write that down. If you felt generally unfocused, you would write that. Since your meditation is going to focus on ajna chakras, you might give yourself space to write down something that you discovered about yourself, even if it was just to make a note that you need to buy a better mat, or the sunlight from the window in your meditation room annoys you. Those are all insights that will allow you to understand yourself a little better. The main point of a meditation journal is that you can look back on this journal frequently to notice any patterns, as well as congratulate yourself on your progress. And, One thing to remember about meditation is that it is never going to be a linear practice. You might have 4 wonderful sessions in a row, and then one that, you feel, is a complete mess. But you can have a bit more kindness towards yourself when you see how hard you've been working towards these goals. Choosing a meditation practice. Before you go out and buy a complete season of Zen Buddhist meditation videos or sign up for a non-refundable Hatha yoga retreat, it's important to shop around a bit for the type of meditation that is appropriate to you. If you picked up this guide, it means that you're interested in meditation that is designed specifically to target the third eye chakra. But there are still some options that you can choose from. Think back to the tools that we discussed in Chapter 1. Do you think you could benefit from a Biha mantra? Can you see yourself attending yoga? Or are you more interested in a mindfulness meditation that focuses on the third eye? The best way to figure out which one resonates most profoundly with you is, of course, to try it out. In the next chapter, you can test run one of the step-by-step practice of a number of different meditation practices before landing on the one that you'll stick with. Remember, once you've started with a particular meditation practice, that doesn't mean you're committed for life. Many people will try a meditation practice for a while, and then explore a new one to see if they can learn more about themselves or take on a different perspective. Keeping yourself open to different styles of meditation will keep the practice fresh and engaging. That said, when you try a new meditation practice, I recommend that you stick with it for at least 1 or 2 weeks before making a decision about whether you like it or not. You may not vibe at first with the Biha mantras, for instance, because making noise for the sake of noise is a foreign concept. You have to break through that first uncomfortable barrier before you can really benefit from the practice. Similarly, meditation preparations like yoga can be difficult at the beginning, especially if you've never stepped onto a mat. But with regular practice, it becomes much easier. In fact, the more difficult it is to break through that awkward stage, the more time you should dedicate to the practice before giving up. When you challenge yourself to get out of your comfort zone, you're inviting your gaze to turn inward to the third eye. I know it's tempting to treat meditation like speed dating, but trust me, you'll have a more satisfying experience if you try to push through the discomfort. Summing it up. Without a plan in practice, you might find yourself picking up a meditation practice and then ditching it after a few weeks. Instead, set yourself up for success by starting off slow, just 3 times a week for 5 minutes or less. Trying out different settings such as group meditations, one-on-one with a guide, or at home. Keeping a record of your meditation, including the challenges and successes. Being open to testing out new styles of meditation so that you can shop around for the best one for you. Giving each meditation style that you try a fair chance. The tendency with meditation is to jump right in. You might be thinking, why do I need a plan to sit in silence for a few minutes? Well, when you plan for something and you visualize yourself doing it, you invite yourself to become more invested in successfully accomplishing your goals. Chapter 5. Meditation Practices. All right, the moment you've been waiting for. You've learned everything you need to know in terms of background and planning, so now it's time to actually get to meditating. This section will go into further detail into the meditation practices that you can use to target your third eye. They will expand upon some of the concepts that we introduced in Chapter 1, so feel free to refer back to those pages if you need to revisit the definitions one more time. Because the purpose of this guide is to help you explore and open your third eye, these meditation practices focus primarily on the ajna. But remember, your chakras don't exist in a vacuum. You should send love and attention to each of the 7 chakras to realize your highest potential. A good rule of thumb is to choose a meditation practice that focuses most on your energy to the third eye, but doesn't neglect your other chakras. Or, you can choose to plan your meditation schedule to rotate between the different chakras, and just make sure that you loop back most frequently to the third eye. Whatever you choose, remember that the energy centers in the body are connected on a single plane, and you will benefit most from your practice when you're able to align them. Pranayama meditation. Again, this type of meditation has to do with the extension of the life force, or breath, the prana. I've listed this meditation practice first because it's one that you should try before any other style. I say that because all of the meditation practices on the list require you to control your breathing in some way. By starting with a practice that deals mainly with the breath, then, you'll be better prepared when you're ready to explore other options. Because this meditation practice only requires you to focus on your inhalations and exhalations, you can do it virtually anywhere, regardless of if you find yourself in public transportation, surrounded by family, or on your lunch break at work. That said, this type of meditation can be enhanced by certain mudras or single nostril breathing. In the case that you want to take the meditation further, you might want to find yourself a nice, quiet spot without interruption, or anyone making you feel odd about taking a mudra. In any case, sit comfortably and open your chest so that your shoulder blades make a flat surface on your back. This will allow you to take fuller breaths without much conscious thought. In order to give a little bit of attention to the chakras, try to imagine a straight line from the root chakra up through your spine to the crown of your head. Once you're settled, follow these steps. 1. If you're seated in a chair, place your hands gently on your thighs. Whether they're face down or up is up to you. If you're seated in a cross-legged position, you might take a dhyana mudra, in which your right hand is cradled in your left hand with both palms facing upward. The thumbs touch lightly to make a triangle-like shape. 2. Start off by noticing your breath without changing it. Where does the air go? Does it fill your lungs to expand your chest? Does it fill your belly? Does it invite your shoulders to creep up slightly toward the ears? Explore how the air fills your body without judgment. 3. Option to close your eyes while you shift your focus from sensation to sound. Does your breath rise and fall smoothly, or does it catch in your nose or throat? Is there a comparison that you can make between your breath and the world around you? For instance, the breath can sometimes sound like oceans lapping up on a sandy shore. Sometimes it sounds like the whisper of wind through a forest. Sometimes, when we experience breathing problems, it might sound like something completely else, a pencil scratching against paper, perhaps. 4. Once you've taken the time to acknowledge your breath without judgment, it's time to elongate the breath. If you've never attempted pranayama before, start out with the 3-2-4 ratio. That's 3 seconds of inhalation, 2 seconds to hold, and 4 seconds to exhale. Once your practice becomes more regular, you can increase this, and in fact your body will beg you to increase this to a 4-7-8 ratio. 5. This new breathing pattern might invite tightness or discomfort in the muscles, so be on the lookout for any cramping sensations in the body. This is particularly common in the shoulders, neck, jaw, and skin of the face around the mouth and in the forehead. If you notice it, invite those muscles to let go. 6. The longer you stay in this meditation, you'll notice that you will overcome the need to actively count the seconds. It will start to become natural. Even if you don't achieve a full meditative state, it will give you a snapshot of the idea behind dhyana, that you can be one with your actions. 7. To come out of it, simply invite your regular breathing patterns to come back. This won't be difficult, but you might just notice that your breathing is a bit steadier than it was before you started. As you can see, this meditation practice is a great foundational exercise for the other meditations on the list. Once you master controlling your breath, you can easily tackle the other styles. Pros: Pranayama is a foundational practice for other meditation styles. It can relax you by inviting you to elongate the breaths, which lowers blood pressure and stress. Cons: Because we're so accustomed to overlooking our breath, it can take a bit of practice to bring it into direct focus. Beginners of pranayama may struggle to stay connected with the breath. Chakra meditation. We've talked a lot about chakras in this guide, but how exactly do you focus on them in meditation? Well, remember back to our explanation of chakras as energy centers in the body. Chakra meditation invites you to visualize this energy as a focal point. The instructions for this one are simple. 1. Dress in comfortable clothes and take a comfortable seat. This can be in a chair, cross-legged on the floor, lying down in a bed, or even with your back against the trunk of a tree or wall. 2. Close your eyes and take a moment to notice your breath. Your breath is essential because it fuels your body with energy. You might also see if you can feel your heartbeat or the blood flowing through you. 3. Elongate your breath so that you're breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 5, and exhaling for 7. Do this for at least 5 breath cycles. You can count internally while you do this, but try to focus more on the sensation of the breath in and out of the lungs than the numbers. 4. As you start to slow down your breathing and turn your focus inward to the flow of energy within, visualize that energy filtering through your third eye. You can imagine this however you'd like: a ball of light pulsing between your brows, a literal eye that shines from within, or the chakra wheel, spinning quickly and radiating brilliantly. 5. If it's useful to you, you can imagine the color associated with the Ajna chakra: blue, indigo, or violet. 6. An optional step here is to bring a finger to the space between your eyebrows and give yourself a little massage. This will encourage blood flow to the area and help you to feel circulation through the ajna. You might also bring your hands together in prayer and lift them up to the third eye so that the knuckles of your thumbs are pressing lightly against the space between your brows. 7. Stay here as long as you can. The longer you remain in this posture, the more you might notice the sensations of energy in the body. It might feel like a vibration, expanding and contracting, or ebbing and flowing as you breathe. 8. To end the practice, simply shift your focus from the third eye back to the breath, and from the breath back to the external world. While this meditation practice is intended to bring focus to the ajna, you're welcome to try it with any of the 7 chakras. You might even use this practice to check in, one at a time, to each of the 7 energy centers, starting with the root chakra at your base, all the way through your crown. One way to add to this meditation practice is to incorporate the different mudras assigned to the chakras. Maybe you stick to the mudra of the chakra that you intend to make the focal point of your meditation session. Or you might flow through the mudras as you check in with each chakra. Pros: Chakra meditation allows you to target individual chakras, or think of them all in alignment. Restores a sense of power and connection. Cons: Beginners may find it difficult to engage because the concept of sending energy to the chakras is abstract. It requires some patience and quite a lot of focus. Biha Mantra Meditation. Biha, as you'll remember, means seed, and these one-syllable audibles are amazing when used as focal points of meditation. What's nice about Biha mantras is that they are based on the 7 chakras, so you can use them to target the third eye. Or, if you'd like to flow through the 7 chakras, you're welcome to repeat the 7 Biha mantras instead. Remember, they are Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Ham, Am, and Aum. If you'd like to focus just on the third eye Biha, remember that there are a few different options that you can try out. Aum, Am, Sham, or Kasham. If you'd like to really bring awareness to the Ajna chakra, maybe you would choose just one version and repeat it aloud to yourself throughout your meditation practice, or as long as it is useful. Remember, a Biha mantra, just like any other tool of meditation, is intended to help you achieve a state of meditation, not get in the way. Many people will start out with a mantra, and then become quiet as their consciousness really begins to turn inward. One of the great things about Biha mantra meditation is that there are a lot of online videos for this style. Even if you just want to hear the correct pronunciation of these seed audibles, it can be helpful to explore how others interpret and say the mantras. Of course, listening to these chants from other people are also amazing guides for your meditation practice. Simply choose a video in which you enjoy the sound of the person's voice and their tempo, and follow along for as long as you'd like your meditation practice to last. Another benefit of practicing mantra meditation this way is that you're inviting more vibration into your practice. Because while your own voice is more than enough to awaken the energy centers within you, being able to sync your vibrations with other reverberating voices is even more peaceful and powerful. To get started with Biha mantra meditation, make sure that you're in a quiet, comfortable place. You're going to be making noise, so when I say comfortable here, it doesn't just mean donning your favorite yoga pants and dimming the lights. What I mean is that if you don't feel comfortable saying the Biha mantras, you won't get the full benefit of them. So, you probably shouldn't try practicing in a public place, unless you're confident that you won't feel embarrassed. Over time, you'll realize that there really is nothing to be embarrassed about, but still, vocal meditation takes some getting used to. Once you've found the perfect, possibly soundproof space, follow this simple guide. 1. Sit down in a comfortable position, and make sure that your back is straight. 2. Take a mudra, or place your left hand over your heart, right hand over your belly. Close your eyes. 3. Start to notice your breath. If your palms are placed on your heart and stomach, try to take note of the way your sternum lifts your left hand as you inhale, and the way your stomach expands into your right palm as you exhale. Do this for 4 breath cycles, trying to elongate your breath with each inhale. For the last 2 breath cycles, inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. 4. When you feel ready to start with your mantra, take an inhale. On the exhale, you're going to say your Biha mantra. You don't have to over-exaggerate the features of your face for this. Just think of it as an expansion on what you just did during your previous 2 breaths. 5. Remember to enunciate each sound in the mantra. If you choose Shaum, you can break that down into Sha, Ah, For Kasham, you can think of it as Kish, Ah, instead of Ka, Sha, Ah, 6. Pay attention to the locations of the vibrations and sensations that come from each sound. Do they resonate in the belly? In the chest? At the back of the throat? 7. At first, this is going to sound like a mantra with 2 to 3 syllables, either Aum, or Aum, or Sha-Aum, or Kasha-Aum. But as you find a rhythm and become more comfortable in your mantra, you'll realize that the sound will merge back into one long syllable. 8. Repeat your seed mantra for as long as you'd like. If you find yourself entering into a meditative state and the mantras cease to be useful, don't use them anymore. Maybe you can continue to think about them in your head for a few cycles of breath before leaving them completely and entering the state of unity. 9. Stay in the meditation for as long as you'd like. When you're ready to come out, give yourself 4 to 5 breath cycles in which you bring your awareness back to the mantra. That means that if you didn't say it for a while during your deeper state of meditation, reintroduce it now. 10. When you're satisfied, bring to turn your awareness back to the external environment. Pros. Biha mantras provide a more tangible focal point than the breath. Vibrations are naturally rejuvenating and restorative. Because of the auditory nature of the Biha mantras, this is a good practice for anyone who needs to be guided. A simple search online will provide plenty of videos of the Biha mantra chants. Cons. If you're not totally comfortable saying the seed mantras, you'll need to give yourself a little time to get used to them. You might feel the need to practice away from others. Affirmation Mantra Meditation. If the Biha mantras aren't comfortable for you, but you like the idea of having a mantra, you can feel free to choose one of your own. There are a few options that I'll share here that you can choose from, or you can create your own. In all reality, the mantras that you write for yourself are going to be more personal and powerful. But if you need some guidance, consider one of the following. Root Chakra. Remember, this is the chakra that celebrates your connection to the earth, your foundation, your base. I am strong in my foundation. I am steady and strong. I am supported by the earth below me. Sacral Chakra. This affirmation should hinge on your creative, enthusiastic, even sexual energy. I have all the tools I need to succeed. I am creative and resourceful. I am self-sufficient. I am unique. I am special. Solar Plexus Chakra. This is the center of your warrior power and confidence. Perhaps more than the other chakras, the light from this energy center radiates out to the world. I have every reason to believe in myself. I am valuable. I am needed. I am enough. I deserve all of the good things that come my way. Heart Chakra. This chakra isn't just about opening yourself up to romantic love. It's about finding compassion for yourself and empathy for others. I am courageous enough to love myself and others. I love without limit and share my love with those ready to receive it. I am strong enough to open up my emotions and understand the emotions of others. Throat Chakra. This chakra allows you to speak and communicate, but it also allows you to think deeply about what it is you have to say. I have something valuable to say. The things I say are insightful and true to my values. I am courageous enough to express myself fully and without regret. Third Eye Chakra. I'm sure you're well versed by now on the meaning of this chakra. Insight, self-reflection, wisdom. There is a wonderful, beautiful world within me. My inner voice is strong, honest, and wise. I am filled with wisdom and intuition. Crown Chakra. Remember, this is the chakra of your fully realized potential. It is the union between you and the divine. I recognize the divinity in me and in all things. My body, my mind, my spirit are full and whole. I am at peace. The important thing here is to remember that these are affirmations, not simply statements. Your goal is to give yourself a feeling of support and validation through meditation. There is a difference between an affirmation mantra and an intention, so try as much as you can to give your affirmations a tone of accomplishment, even if you don't totally believe in them yet. In order to set up this meditation practice, follow the guide of the Biha mantras. If you can, try to say these mantras out loud to yourself, or simply think about them and ponder them one by one. If you chant them without giving them proper attention and consideration, the power within them is lost. Pros. Affirmation meditations are personalizable and can be adapted to your specific needs. Many of us are taught to minimize our worth and value, so the affirmations are amazing at rebuilding self-confidence and self-love. Cons. They rely heavily on conscious thought, which might not be conducive to the meditative state that brings us into contact with the third eye. Yoga or Tantra meditation. We live in a wonderful age for yoga. It seems that in every city in the Western world, there are a number of different yoga studios, not to mention all of the free online videos that bring a yoga instructor into your living room. The industry of yoga has made it incredibly easy to buy all the best gear, from high-quality mats, to comfortable clothes, to blocks and straps, and more. But one thing that I've noticed about this movement into the mainstream is that the original intention of yoga as preparation for meditation has been largely lost in today's fast-paced world. More and more, final resting poses are shortened, and yoga is marketed more as a weight loss plan than a meditation practice. Perhaps there has been a shift in mentality from the traditional instructor-student dynamic to service provider-consumer relationship. When the client is paying good money to be in a yoga class, he or she might be less inclined to spend that time lying down in a final resting pose. It's doubly dismaying to see this phenomenon unfold at the same time that meditation has made its own separate mark on popular culture. There are plenty of people out there who, having been introduced to the ideas of yoga and meditation separately, treat them as two distinct fields. Keeping the practices separate is unnecessarily costly. That's not to say that yoga has to be your main style for meditation, but if you're able to make it into more of a meditative state, you'll be better off for it. Once you let go of the notion that you have to be sweating in your yoga class, you can start to gaze inward and really reap the benefits of Tantra meditation. Unlike the other forms of meditation on this list, I recommend that you don't try this one on your own, at least not at first. Many of the yoga poses are difficult to master, and without proper instruction and guidance, can be dangerous. That said, there are a couple of poses that you can start off with at home, and that can deepen your connection with the third eye without posing any risks. If you don't own a mat, don't fret. These poses can be done on a blanket, towel, or hey, even on a clean floor. Wear something comfortable and give yourself a good amount of space. Here are a few of the poses you might start out with. Like the other meditation practices, these poses were chosen because they are particularly conducive to building a connection with your third eye. 1. Start in what is called mountain pose, which is a standing asana. You want to stand at the front edge, top, of your mat or blanket, with your feet hip-width apart. Take a moment to make sure that your weight is evenly distributed between the balls of your feet and the heels, without putting more weight in one leg than the other. Starting with your feet, pay close attention to the alignment of your body. You want your knees in a straight line over your ankles, your hips over your knees, pelvic bone pulling down. Your spine should be similar to when you practice the chakra meditation. When you bring your attention to the shoulders, neck, and head, make sure to Make sure to shift your shoulder blades back so that your chest opens and your palms rotate forward. In order to give special attention to your third eye, bring your hands together in prayer in front of your brow. 2. Notice your breath and elongate your breathing. Yoga is enhanced greatly by linking your breath to your movements, so make sure never to lose sight of your prana. As you stand in mountain pose, see if you can elongate the breath just like in your pranayama practice. 3. You're going to move into a standing chair pose by shifting your weight slightly to the heels of your feet and bending your knees. Make sure that your back stays straight and that you're keeping your upper body reaching towards the ceiling. You can keep your palms together at the third eye if you'd like. Otherwise, you might go into eagle arms, in which you extend both arms out in front of you with your palms down. Without moving your left arm, take your right arm and slip it underneath so that your left elbow is cradled in your right elbow socket. Then, make a 90-degree angle with your left arm by lifting your fingertips to the ceiling. Complete the pose by bringing your right hand up to join with the left in an arm twist. 4. Bring your attention back to your spine and hips, making sure that you're not leaning too far forward. Breathe, and see if you can sit a little deeper into the pose by bending your knees. 5. If you're in eagle arms, release the arms and reverse the position. Left arm goes under right arm. 6. When you're ready to move into the next pose, take a breath in while releasing the arms up to reach for the ceiling. Exhale by straightening the legs and bending forward from the hips into a forward fold. This is going to invite the blood to rush into the third eye chakra, but it can also become intense if you stay for too long. After a couple of breaths, bend your knees to come down to the ground. 7. Come to a tabletop position in the center of your mat by placing your wrists directly under your shoulders and your knees directly under your hips. 8. Your crown chakra should be on the same plane as your spine, so that your neck isn't straining and your head isn't drooping. Look down to the mat between your hands. Come into a child's pose by moving your knees out to either edge of your yoga mat. If you're not using a mat, they can be just a few inches out from your hips. Your big toes are going to come together. 9. Your hips are going to fall back slowly onto your heels, while your fingers reach for the front edge of your mat with straight arms. Be mindful that your shoulders aren't crowded up towards your ears, but rather that there is space, about 1 or 2 inches, between your arms and your head. Your forehead will come to the mat, and gravity will pull your heart down to the earth as well. 10. Stay here for as long as it's possible, perhaps massaging your third eye on the mat by rocking your head back and forth. You might also encourage more energy to amass around the Ajna chakra by bending your elbows and clasping your hands behind your head. 11. When you're ready to come out of the posture, you can slowly push up from your palms and come back to a tabletop position. Make your way, however is most comfortable, onto your back for a final resting pose. 12. In Savasana, or corpse pose, you'll find yourself with legs outstretched and arms at your side, palms facing up. The task here is to allow your body to melt into a final meditation, which is why this pose requires no physical effort. All your energy is directed towards being present in the moment and searching for the unity of dhyana. Stay here for as long as your meditation practice allows. 13. When you're ready to come out of the pose, wiggle your fingers and toes and rotate your wrists and ankles. Come to a fetal position by shifting your weight to one side of the body. Gently push yourself up and come into a comfortable seated position. 14. As you close out your practice, bring your focus back to your breath and the energy that you cultivated in the space around your third eye. Bring your palms together in prayer and raise the knuckles of your thumbs up in the Ajna chakra. If you've ever attended a yoga class, you probably noticed that the session ended with the word Namaste, which means loosely translated to I bow to you. There are many interpretations of this concept, but it is generally understood as a way to practice gratitude for the opportunity to practice yoga. You might be bowing humbly to your instructor, or you might be bowing humbly to your higher self, or, if you consider meditation to be a spiritual practice, to a higher power. The really wonderful thing about practicing yoga to strengthen your relationship with the third eye is just how broad the field is. Some claim that there are over 8 million asanas to explore, which is probably why people dedicate their entire lives to being students of yoga. There are also a number of different styles of yoga that you can choose from, depending on your personal preferences and ability. Here are a few of the different yoga types that you might explore to add some variety to your meditation practice. Kundalini. This yoga practice is specifically tailored to the 7 chakras, so it's a great place to start if you're interested in exploring the ajna. Unlike many of the mainstream yoga practices out there, Kundalini incorporates a number of meditation tools in addition to the asanas to wake up the chakras, including pranayama and mantras. Hatha. Hatha yoga is sometimes considered a beginner's style of yoga, but that can vary depending on the instructor and studio culture. Hatha, in a simple explanation, is meant to link asanas and pranayama while preparing the body for dhyana. Bikram. This is an offshoot of Hatha that takes place in a hot room. When I say hot, I mean 105 degrees. Yikes. What's nice about Bikram is that you can always expect the same 26 poses, so there are no surprises. Because it's practiced in a hot room, Bikram isn't recommended for everyone. Vinyasa. This form of yoga is a bit more rigorous in its linking of breath and asanas. Vinyasa classes tend to cycle you through asanas every time that you inhale or exhale, so there is a constant movement. Ashtanga. Ashtanga is similar to Vinyasa in that each breath is linked to one asana. However, unlike Vinyasa, Ashtanga takes the same routine every time. For those who are fully committed to Ashtanga, yoga is practiced 6 days a week, and the yogi is expected to master a set of sequences before moving on to the next. Yin. Yin yoga is a very slow version of yoga, but that doesn't mean it is easy. Holding asanas for 5 minutes or more can be difficult, but can also be a great preparation for meditation. If you're worried that the yoga classes that you have available to you are too mainstream to really allow you to connect with your Ajna chakra, I recommend getting in touch with an instructor who offers one-on-one sessions. That way, you can be clear about your intentions with yoga, i.e. you want a practice that will allow you to explore your third eye, and reintroduce meditation as the main purposes of the asanas. Pros. Tantric meditation is wonderful for anyone who struggles with concentration or feels that other meditative practices are boring. Yoga promotes physical well-being and discipline and is flexible enough to incorporate pranayama, mudras, and mantras. With the recent rise in popularity of yoga, there are virtually endless possibilities for styles in schools. Online videos and podcasts allow you to practice yoga wherever you want. Cons. As a physical practice, some forms of yoga may be unsuitable for individuals with health problems. Because yoga is so easily accessible, many people will start practicing without formal guidance or instruction, which can lead to injury or improper postures. Mindfulness meditation. Of all of the meditation practices that we've reviewed in this section, mindfulness is likely the most popular today. When you hear someone talking about meditation, they're likely referring to mindfulness. With the rise in popularity of meditation apps, retreats, and books on meditation, mindfulness has all but become synonymous with meditation instead of a version of meditation. So, is the hype real? Well, there's a good reason that mindfulness has become so popular in today's society. Instead of asking us to wrap our heads around new concepts like chakras, or investing in the necessary equipment and time that yoga requires, mindfulness simply allows us to take stock of the world we already live in, because that's all mindfulness really is: awareness. Now, there are a few ways to do this. You can foster mindfulness through breath, thoughts, food, exercise, conversations, or music. Since we've already talked extensively about breath, I'm only going to review two practices within mindfulness: mindful eating and body scans. For mindful eating, you're going to set yourself up for success by granting yourself silence and space from others. Don't try to practice mindful eating for the first time when you're having lunch with a group of friends. Instead, find a time, even if it's only 10 minutes, to do this by yourself. You're going to spend a good amount of time looking at, touching, and tasting your food, so you can imagine why this is something you want to do without an audience. So, what should you eat? I would recommend something that you eat pretty often that has an interesting texture. Maybe a walnut, peach, chocolate bar with little pieces of nougat or hard candy, raisin, or a piece of toast with plenty of seeds. Really anything that is complex. If it incorporates different textures and flavors in one bite, even better. Once you've got your food item and the space and time to get it down, follow these few steps. Just for simplicity, I've chosen to write the guide as if you were eating a walnut, but feel free to use anything you'd like. 1. Take a look at the walnut. What is the color? Does it look rough or smooth? How many canyons and peaks does it have? How does the light cast shadows in the crevices of the walnut? 2. Next, feel the weight of the walnut in your palm. Really pay attention to the way that the walnut sits heavy or lightly in your palm. During this step, you'll also want to run a finger over the surface of the walnut. Does the skin of your finger get caught or snagged? 3. Bring the walnut up to your nose to smell it. If it's salted, see if you can distinguish the smell of the salt from the walnut itself. Have you ever wondered what the smell of a walnut is? Now is your chance to get up close and personal with that smell. 4. Place the walnut on the center of your tongue and close your mouth around it. Don't chew, just notice the weight of it on your tongue. How does your perception of the weight differ from when it was in your palm? 5. Next, notice which of the taste buds on your tongue is triggered by the walnut. Salty? Bitter? Sweet, even? You've probably heard that your sense of smell is closely linked to your tastes, so see if you can perceive any changes in your olfactory senses right now. 6. You're ready now to take a bite out of the walnut. Think about the muscles that are necessary to position the walnut in between your teeth and actually bite down. What is the sound of the walnut cracking? 7. As you chew and swallow, continue to notice what sensations are coming up in the mouth and throat. The quality of taste will change subtly as the walnut is moved around to different regions of the tongue and moved towards the back of the throat. If you really want to make the most out of this mindful eating practice, try to take a good amount of time, at least 5 to 10 seconds, on each step. The idea is that we rarely give so much attention to our everyday tasks, especially eating. Most of us run around throughout the day shoving a donut or a handful of raisins into our mouths between meetings. With that kind of lifestyle, most of our food is swallowed without even a thought to taste or quality. By giving ourselves the opportunity to eat mindfully, we don't just learn to appreciate our food, but we also teach ourselves an important lesson on how to be more aware in other areas of our lives. Next, we're going to try a body scan, which is a very common mindfulness practice that can be done anywhere and at any time. Most likely, no one will have any idea that you're doing a body scan, which makes it a great grounding exercise before you have to face a stressful situation. Here's a simple guide. 1. Your body scan is going to start in your feet. All that you have to do is notice how they feel. Are you wearing comfortable shoes? What material are your socks? Is there any discomfort in the arches, balls, or heels? 2. Next, shift your attention up to your ankles and calves. Perhaps you can try gently contracting the muscles of your calf to remind yourself of the strength and size of the muscle. You might also consider what material is covering the calf, or whether it's exposed to open air. Think consciously about the sensations of either. 3. Now, you're going to focus on your knees, which, for most of us, need some serious attention. Is there any pain or discomfort here? 4. Keep the scan going by shifting your internal gaze up to the thigh, buttocks, and hips. We tend to carry a lot of stress in this area of the body, so see if you can recognize any tightness in this region. If you do feel some fussiness, invite yourself to let go. 5. Turn your internal gaze up to the organs in your belly. Notice the way that this part of your body changes as you breathe in and out. 6. The next area for your body to scan will be the chest, shoulders, and arms. Since all you're doing here is inhaling and exhaling, this is a rich region for sensation. Pay attention to any stress that you may be holding in your shoulders or upper arms, and see if you can relax the muscles by pulling your shoulders down. 7. The last stop on your body scan will be the head. There's a tendency here to hurry up and finish your body scan, but I recommend that you actually spend the longest time here. Pay close attention to the muscles along your jaw, around your mouth, in your cheeks and forehead. Are you pinching your lips together? Are you clenching your eyes closed? 8. When you finish scanning your body, you might invite yourself to turn the gaze in to the third eye. You might ask yourself what you learned about your body and what emotions might have come up for you during the process. Were you feeling fidgety? Were you surprised to find that your body was holding stress in unexpected places? These are all insights that you can acknowledge and appreciate by giving your third eye the time to process them. 9. At this point, you've reached a good place for a deeper meditation if you choose to do so. Keep breathing fully. Finish whenever you're ready to reconnect to the external world. Body scans are nice because they require very little other than a willingness to be present in the body. You might try a body scan while you're doing some light exercise, like going for a walk or jog. It can be a great way to wake up in the morning or check in with your body before going to bed. Pros. Mindfulness is one of the more well-researched fields of meditation, which means that you're reaping the benefits of a practice that is backed by science. Mindfulness requires no tools and can be done in any setting. There are plenty of guided mindfulness practices and videos out there, making it one of the more accessible forms of meditation. Cons. Mindfulness requires a high level of thought control and can be difficult for beginners. Visualization meditation. So far, most of the meditation practices we've covered have dealt with being present in the body as a way to encourage relaxation and acceptance. Visualization, on the other hand, invites you to expand your imagination just a little bit in order to achieve a meditative state. This is a great practice for anyone who is interested in embracing or seeking change, or just wants to add something new to an existing meditation practice. So what do I mean by visualization? Well, simply, it's your willingness to envision possibilities. Visualization is the practice of conjuring up an image in your mind that you want to be true, and that isn't just wishful thinking. Practicing this type of meditation has a number of benefits. By thinking about something happening in great detail, you're preparing the neural pathways that will be called upon when the event takes place. That can reduce stress and increase self-confidence. It can also give you perspective by giving you the space to process something in a rational, non-emotional state. Let's think of an example. Say you're going to be giving a public speech that you're really nervous about. There's a little negative voice inside you that's been telling you that you should just cancel the event, or that if you go up there in front of everyone, you'll tank. The more you think about it, the more anxious you become. In essence, your mind is already performing a visualization. It's just not a healthy one. In this visualization, your mind is sending energy to the neural pathways that will trigger the amygdala stress response. The connection between your emotional medial prefrontal cortex and the amygdala is strengthening. So even if you were initially excited about this opportunity, those negative feelings are beginning to take over. But you have the power to change the script here. Visualization meditation would invite you to enter a space of neutrality and peace. From this state, you can start to send more energy to the lateral prefrontal cortex, where you can think rationally and non-judgmentally about the event. From this tranquil state of mind, you can consider all of the challenges you might face without assigning emotion to them. This type of meditation is amazing for anyone looking to awaken the third eye, because it revolves around validating your inner wisdom and harnessing the power of your inner voice. Visualizing the future allows you to realize your full potential before an event takes place. And this type of meditation doesn't just have to be for a stressful event. You can visualize anything from daily job performance to your interpersonal relationships to your weight loss goals. Before you sit down to try out this guided visualization, think of something that you might want to address in meditation. In order to give you a fuller picture of what this looks like, I'm going to use a specific example. Consider, for instance, that you would like to have a conversation with your partner about taking a weekend trip with a good friend of yours. You know that this is going to be something of an inconvenience to your partner, and you're a bit worried about how they might react. So let's go through a visualization practice that might be helpful. To get started, you'll want to give yourself about 20 minutes of uninterrupted time, give or take 5 minutes. You don't want a visualization to last more than half an hour. Otherwise, you might find yourself in a rumination cycle. Overall, listen to your ajna. If things are getting heated within you, take a break. If you feel that you're making good progress, stick with it. Consider having a pen and paper handy in case you'd like to write down some of the things you discover in this meditation. When you're ready to begin, follow these steps. 1. Sit comfortably and close your eyes. 2. Take 5 cycles of cleansing breaths and 5 more cycles of pranayama. Try to relax all of the muscles in your body by doing a quick body scan. 3. Choose an ajna chakra or a throat chakra mantra to repeat quietly to yourself 2 times. For the purposes of our example, consider something like, "My inner voice is wise and valid," or "I am not ashamed to express myself. My needs and feelings are valid and important." Even if you feel like your partner always acknowledges and validates your needs, this is more of an affirmation for yourself. Oftentimes, we dread telling others our desires because we don't feel that we deserve to have what we want. So, by setting ourselves up with these kinds of affirmations, we remind ourselves of our worth. 4. Try to visualize in great detail what it would be like to go on this trip. What would you wear? What would you eat? What would the weather be like? If feelings of excitement, happiness, and relaxation come up, hold on to them. Allow them to radiate through you. 5. Now, visualize what it would be like to sit down and start the conversation with your partner. Be really meticulous about the details here. Would you be sitting across from them or next to them? Would you be holding their hand? Imagine how you would breach the topic. Use specific words in your head here, such as, "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" 6. Now you're going to imagine the conversation in the best case scenario. Go through, step by step, how the conversation would play out in the case that your partner is 100% supportive and happy for you. Imagine the feelings that would come with that, and allow them to radiate through you. 7. Now, as uncomfortable as this might be, acknowledge that this version of the conversation might not happen, and that's okay. Your partner has their own ajna voice that is valid, and their own needs that may be feeling unmet in this situation. Imagine how you might react if your partner becomes disappointed or withdrawn. What exactly might you say to them that will validate their feelings and still allow you to stay true to your ajna? As much as you can, visualize these scenarios without judgment or emotion. There might be a tendency to feel things like anger or defensiveness, but try your best to acknowledge the presence of these emotions and then, with love, let them go. The negative emotions don't serve you. 8. Now, at this point of the visualization, you might experience the amygdala stirring up some of the preparatory stress reactions. That's normal. The point of going through this process alone is that you'll be able to address this reaction in a neutral setting and have more control over it in the case that the conversation plays out this way in real life. If the stress response is becoming overwhelming, loop back to your pranayama and affirmations. This will allow the emotional and physical response to calm down so that you can come back to your visualization. 9. Once you've gone through all the possible scenarios, or have been practicing for about 15 minutes, it's time to start coming out of the visualization. The way that you finish off a visualization process is extremely important, so don't skip these steps. You can start by revisiting your affirmations. 10. Take your focus back to your breath. Imagine that each breath you take in is washing out any negative emotions that might have come up in the practice. Stay here for 10 cycles of breath. If you have any particular thoughts or emotions that are lingering in your mind, acknowledge them and let them go. Before you make your way back to the external world, make sure you bathe yourself in appreciation. Visualizations can be as difficult as they are rewarding, so you should thank yourself for your effort. 11. Come out of the visualization by awakening your connection to the external world. What noises do you hear? What is the sensation of the air on your skin? I wanted to share an example of a visualization that has to do with an emotionally charged situation, because it's one of the more taxing meditation practices that you'll do. But remember, you can practice visualization for a number of different scenarios, from envisioning yourself going to the gym, to organizing a party for your friend, to just spending a day alone. And because I don't want you to get the sense that visualizations are always heavy, difficult ordeals, consider the following visualization meditation. You might use this to add some positivity to a bad day, or get yourself through a long line at the post office. Try it out. 1. Go through a short mindfulness warm-up by noticing the sensations of breathing in and out for 3 cycles of breath. 2. Bring to your mind a natural setting, such as a brook or stream in the forest. It's a sunny, warm day, and there are a few puffy clouds in the sky. In front of you, you see a grassy patch next to the stream, dotted with a few wildflowers. 3. Imagine yourself being in this situation. What does the sun feel like on your forehead and shoulders? Can you imagine the fresh smell of the grass and flowers? Can you hear the trickle of the water over the riverbed? 4. Imagine yourself taking a seat next to the creek and placing just your fingertips in the water. Visualize the coolness of the water and the sensation of it on your fingertips as you rub your thumb and index finger together. 5. Stay here for as long as you'd like, before turning your attention back to the external world. You can practice this type of visualization with whatever setting works best for you. If you love the beach, you can imagine the sand beneath you and try to hear the sounds of waves crashing. If you love that reading chair you have next to the fireplace, visualize yourself there. So, you can see that visualization is a pretty broad form of meditation. You can use it to relax yourself in a situation by visualizing yourself in a warm, positive setting. Or, you can use it to tackle upcoming challenges by giving yourself the space to visualize the possible outcomes. Both are extremely useful forms of meditation that will allow you to connect with your ajna and articulate your inner voice. Pros. Visualization has been proven to increase your likelihood of success by giving you the opportunity to control your emotions in a neutral setting. Predicting and thinking about possibilities primes the neural pathways that will be called upon in the upcoming situation, so that you can feel prepared. Visualization can also trigger neural responses to imagined experiences, such as sitting next to a peaceful lake. Cons. Visualization can be emotionally overwhelming and should be practiced with care. They require uninterrupted time and a high-structured process of preparation, visualization, and cool-down. Summing it up. Even though we covered quite a few different forms of meditation, this isn't an exhaustive list. The more that you explore all of the meditation options out there, you're bound to find the perfect practice for you. Here's a summary of the ones that we covered here. Pranayama meditation focuses on elongating the breath to rejuvenate energy. Chakra meditation invites the participant to send light and energy through the breath to the 7 chakras. Biha mantra meditation relies on the 7 seed mantras and pranayama to send energy through vibration to the 7 chakras. Affirmation mantra meditation allows you to validate and love yourself through affirmative, supportive mantras. Tantra, combination of asanas, pranayama, and sometimes mantras to prepare the body for final meditation. Mindfulness invites you to be fully present by noticing bodily sensations. Visualization requires you to visualize a future situation or an imagined setting to bring calmness and clarity. Whatever meditation practice you choose to explore, I'm going to remind you to stick with it for at least 1 to 2 weeks, if you're able. Obviously, if you try yoga and it seems like you're just not physically in the right place to continue, don't push yourself to injury. But if you're simply feeling fussy in mindfulness because you've never done it before, or you're not sure you're going to be able to get past the initial discomfort of the Biha mantras, I would suggest you continue a few more times. And again, you can make any of these practices more tailored to your connection with the third eye by reminding yourself to send energy to the brow and giving yourself the time to explore your inner voice. Resources. More on chakra meditation. www.captigeninsight.com www.consciouslifestylemag.com and www.theboxofhappiness.com. More on pranayama meditation. www.yogajournal.com www.alignedmodernhealth.com and www.healthline.com. More on Tantra meditation. www.greatest.com www.yogajournal.com www.yogaworks.com www.doyouyoga.com and www.doyogawithme.com. More on mindful meditation. www.mindful.org. More on visualization meditation. www.digitalcommons.georgiasouthern.edu. www.mydomain.com and www.gaiam.com. Chapter 6. Maintaining a regular meditation practice. Let's take a moment to acknowledge all that you've learned about third eye meditation in this guide so far. You've armed yourself with an entire vocabulary of terms that come from ancient Hindu traditions. You've learned about the roots of meditation and how the practice has endured and changed over time. You've explored the fascinating discoveries in neurobiology that have shown the physical and mental benefits of meditation. And you've set up a fail-proof plan for getting started, as well as dabbled in a few of the more popular meditation practices out there. Now comes the hard part, sticking with your practice. Meditation is always helpful, even if you only do it once or twice a year. But, just like anything else in this world, regular dedication will make meditation easier and provide you with more benefits. But, I get it. Many people don't expect meditation to be so mentally tiring in the beginning, and it can be difficult to know whether the positive outcomes are worth the effort. On the other hand, meditation can sometimes dredge up truths and feelings that we've never confronted before, which can be confusing and even scary. It's entirely understandable that we would want to protect ourselves from that, or that we might feel unprepared to handle them. This section is all about how to lean into some of the more challenging aspects of meditation that no one really talks about. After all, how many of us have started a meditation practice with the idea that we'd be Zen masters after our first session, only to be frustrated and bored and angry with ourselves for being naive? This section isn't meant to scare you away from meditation or make you feel like you can't do it. Instead, it's an honest conversation about meditation that should leave you feeling validated and inspired to stick with it. You got this far. You definitely have the strength to keep going. Challenging that negative voice in your head. Whether you're new to meditation or have been practicing for a while, at some point or other you're going to have to address the negative voice. This is the voice that tells you meditation is a drag and you should quit. It's the voice that tells you it would be way more fun to watch another hour of television than set aside 5 minutes of meditation. It's the voice that annoyingly buzzes around your head when you're trying to focus on your breath or yoga poses. But as much as you might want to quash that voice once and for all, the reality is that it's probably not going away. The better response to the negative voice is to give yourself the necessary tools to talk back to it. I've found that for some people it can be helpful to visualize the negative voice as an actual being. Maybe it's a person, or maybe it's a cartoon villain. If that idea is too silly for you, don't use it. It's just a technique to get you thinking about your negative voice as something separate from you. That way, you can address it the same way that you might talk back to someone being rude to you on the bus, or brush off the ridiculous comments of an online troll. One thing to keep in mind here, again, is that fostering a meditation practice isn't linear. Sometimes you might go a long time without hearing the negative voice, only to be surprised by it in the middle of a deep meditation. That's okay. By teaching ourselves to deal with the situation now, we're laying the foundation for a practice that will persevere no matter what future challenges pop up. Here are some of the common tropes that the negative voice might bring up when we're trying to establish a meditation practice. This is boring. We live in a world that offers us pretty constant entertainment. If we're not watching television, we're listening to music, or we're video chatting, or we're texting, or we're scrolling through social media. It's not surprising that meditation that invites us to find solace in stillness makes us feel unsatisfied. And you know what? It might be freeing just to acknowledge to yourself that, yes, meditation can be boring. It's not the lights and action and sharp noises of the external world we're used to. But we should also acknowledge that meditation can be, well, not boring as well. The world within ourselves, the sensations, the vibrations, the affirmations, the energy, is something to be explored and experienced in the same way that we might watch a moving film or go to an art gallery. But if we're not accustomed to recognizing the beauty and expansiveness of that inner world, it's going to seem boring. Boredom might manifest through the negative voice loudly telling you that you could be happier doing something else. Just cut the meditation short a few minutes. It's fine, the negative voice might say. In the moment, it can be helpful to simply bring your attention back to your focal point, whether it's your breath or a mantra. The important thing is to not give in to the temptation to quit. Otherwise, your brain will assume that when things get boring, it's okay to move on to something else. Another way you can think about this is through a lens of self-love. You're here meditating, not because you're looking for something entertaining, but because you know there are benefits to finding stillness and fostering a connection with your ajna chakra. Your persistence and dedication are reminders that you're willing to do things that are challenging, because your well-being is worth the effort. You can choose how you talk back to the negative voice that cries boredom, but here are a few responses that you also might utilize. When the negative voice says, "This is boring," try saying, "Maybe you're just not paying attention. There's a lot happening in this meditation right now." Boring? Quiet, still, peaceful, maybe. Boring? No. Or try a different approach by rolling with the negative thought. Alright, fine. Maybe it's a little boring, but so is brushing my teeth, and I don't doubt the benefit of that. Hey, I'm building something here. This temple takes time and perseverance. We're all going to have days when meditating is going to feel like a drag. But, if you can, take a couple of breaths and look for the good in your practice. This is hard. Maybe you started off a chakra meditation practice thinking, well, all I have to do is sit here and focus on my energy centers. That doesn't sound so bad. But then, once you actually sat down and tried focusing on your chakras, you realized that you couldn't stop thinking about whether you fed the dog, or how much time had passed, or whether this cold spell would pass any time soon. At first, you were able to dismiss these nagging thoughts the way you've been taught, with compassion and without self-judgment. But no matter how many times you lovingly gave these thoughts the boot, they just kept coming back. Like little buzzing gnats, you lost your patience. Most likely, in that situation, it was your expectation that you should be able to overcome the intervening thoughts that made meditation impossible. The more those thoughts chipped away at your connection with your breath or your contemplation of your mantras, the more you started to panic and become angry or disappointed with yourself. So yes, meditation can be hard, and that negative voice is more willing to swoop in during our downward spiral to say, "Ugh, this is too hard. This is impossible." But I would argue that it's actually our high expectations of ourselves and what we think meditation should be that is the hard part. Once we're able to put those expectations to rest and show ourselves props for starting at all, we can make progress towards our goals. When the negative voice starts to bubble up within you, usually on the tail of unwanted thoughts, here are a few ways to fight back. All right. Maybe this is harder than I thought, but I can do this. Eventually the thoughts will take a back seat. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but I'm strong enough to keep trying until they do. Or another option. Maybe it just seems hard because I had different expectations for what meditation would be like. I thought it would be much easier to control my thoughts. Sometimes, maybe most of the time, right now, I can't. That's okay. I can keep trying. When you validate the challenges of meditation instead of trying to deny them or push your way past them, you'll notice a weight lifted off your shoulders. This is emotional. One of the most surprising aspects of meditation for many people is the emotionality of it. If you generally consider yourself to be a stoic or reserved person, you might unexpectedly start tearing up at the end of a meditation session. Of course, that doesn't happen to everyone. But when it does, it can be unnerving and confusing. When you're looking to open the third eye, it's pretty inevitable that you're going to explore something emotional. That's not to say you're going to uncover something painful, necessarily, although that is also possible. But consider also that opening the third eye might bring up so much gratitude of yourself, your loved ones, or life in general, that you feel overwhelmed. Why does this happen? Well, on the one hand, many of us live our lives at a fast clip, running from home, to work, to dinner with friends, to the gym, to the store, etc. We never stop. Even when we're not physically moving from one place to another, we're thinking about everything that we have to do. It's very rare that we're afforded the opportunity to sit with what's there. In the void, your brain might think that this is a good and safe opportunity to bring up some things that you've been avoiding. All of a sudden, you might realize that just under the surface, you've been really sad about the fact that your friend is moving away, or ashamed of yourself for how you treated a coworker. In all the hustle and bustle, you didn't have the chance to process those things until now. In addition to giving ourselves this space to be still, and when we're normally so used to being in motion, there's also the new experience of gazing inward. Sometimes ajna-focused meditation forces us to see a side of ourselves that we didn't know was there, or that we don't particularly like. Practices involving the ajna chakra are all about validating and honoring your inner wisdom and power. If you've struggled with self-esteem, third eye meditation might remind you of those struggles. Even if you don't think either of these options are what's bringing up these feelings for you, there's also a neurological process happening that could trigger an emotional response. Remember that when we meditate, we're allowing the brain to reconfigure our neural pathways. That might mean that some emotions get triggered that we didn't expect, especially when we revisit certain memories. No matter the cause, it's important to normalize the emotional aspect of meditation. If your negative voice is giving you a hard time for feeling something on your mat, the best thing you can do for yourself is validate those feelings. And that, in itself, is easier said than done. We've been told all our lives to keep our emotions under control, so when they come up during meditation, the immediate response is to stifle them and stop the session. I'm going to suggest that, if you're ready, you try leaning into the emotional aspect of meditation. After all, if you can't process your emotions here, in a neutral setting basked in light, love, and energy, then when and how are you ever going to grow? That said, there's a huge caveat here. Meditation is going to help you explore and uncover emotions that you didn't know you were dealing with, but that doesn't mean that you have to deal with them alone. Meditation can be greatly enhanced with the guidance and support of a medical professional, and you definitely should seek help if you feel overwhelmed by your emotions. And when that negative voice starts to tell you to just give up your meditation practice because it's too emotionally draining, consider the following responses. It's okay to be emotional here. This might be the only space where I can be emotional, so I shouldn't deny myself the opportunity. I'm safe, I love myself, my feelings are important. So, what's the takeaway here? Well, emotions may be part of your practice, and you should welcome them as an indication that you're making progress. This is time-consuming. There's no getting around it. Meditation takes time. There are plenty of companies that want to sell quick-fix meditation by making it seem like you can become a guru with just 2 minutes of effort. But, come on. You know deep down that nothing is that simple. Yes, you can start off a practice with just a few minutes of meditation per day, but eventually, you're going to want to tack some time onto the individual sessions. And you're the kind of person, like most of us are, that needs some preparation, like yoga or mantras, before getting into the meditative state. The idea that you can hop into deep meditation in 2 minutes is pretty misleading. This is where the issue comes in. We all live busy lives, and meditation often doesn't seem like a priority for us. How can we budget even 15 minutes of meditation when there are errands to run, or a home improvement project to do, or a report to submit? In our society, it can be very difficult to justify spending time doing something that looks, and sometimes feels, like doing nothing. The negative voice for this issue generally whispers things like, "You really don't have time to meditate today. Try to fit it in tomorrow." Or maybe within the first few minutes of your practice, the voice chimes in with, "You know what? You tried meditating and you're just not getting anywhere. Why don't you quit for the day and move on to something more useful?" These reactions are understandable, but you'll never get anywhere in your meditation practice if you don't feel that the process is worth your time. So, when that voice starts guilting you into feeling like you should be doing something else, try these responses. I deserve this time to work on myself and build my meditation practice. If I don't make this a priority now, I'll never get around to building my meditation practice. Even when I didn't realize it, I was making progress with my meditation practice before today. That means that this session could be more helpful than it feels in this moment. If you're still struggling to validate this time for your meditation practice, consider reviewing the section on neurobiology. Giving yourself the time to take care of your chakras isn't just a hobby or a procrastination tool. Meditation changes your brain chemistry, improves focus, allows you to make more balanced decisions, and improves your physical health. That's definitely more worthy of your time and energy than any errand or chore that you feel you should be doing instead. This is getting old. Remember back to the last time that you started something new, only to quit after a few weeks when it had lost its appeal? Meditation is one of those practices that can seem to plateau if you're not continually reminding yourself of its importance or allowing yourself to find new ways to practice. Here are a few tips when things get a bit snagged. Remind yourself of your intention. When you first started meditation, you undoubtedly had a reason why. Sometimes simply reminding yourself of this is enough to keep you motivated. But if you need a little bit of encouragement, maybe you can look back through your meditation journal. This will show you just how far you've come and likely reconnect you with your practice. Incorporate a different style. If the meditation styles listed here don't float your boat, look for something new. Like I've said before, there are many, many ways to practice meditation. You can find what works for you, even if it doesn't exactly follow traditional styles. Change the setting. You might have an idea of meditation as a practice that can only be done in complete silence, sitting down next to a lake without another person in sight. Well, that's not the world we live in, so it's much better to be flexible with your ideas about where you can practice meditation. If you get bored during meditation in a dimly lit room that is totally shut off from the world, why not try practicing in the park? Try out new props or equipment. Another of the benefits of the recent rise in popularity of meditation is the accessibility of different tools. Essential oils or incense can give you something to awaken your senses during mindful meditation. Heating pads can help you to bring warmth and energy to your chakras. Auditory tools like Tibetan singing bowls or gongs can help you connect with your inner vibrations. Even changing up the music or adding music to your practice can really shift the way that you experience your meditation. Find a community. If you're struggling to maintain a steady practice, chances are there are many people in the same situation. Maybe you can find a community through a local meditation class, or even reach out to some people online. The thing to remember, of course, is that your meditation practice is, well, yours. Other students of meditation may help to encourage you and give you advice, but don't let that muffle the sound of your inner intuition. What I'm saying is, make sure that the community you find bolsters your practice instead of taking away from it. Summing it up. Even if you know someone who has a solid meditation practice and seems to have it all figured out, you're likely not getting the full picture. Everyone who practices meditation has struggled with it at one point or another. Many people continue to struggle years after they first sat down on a mat. But by acknowledging the challenges and giving yourself the tools to push back against that negative voice that tries to convince you to quit, your practice will get stronger all the time. After all, it's not the absence of difficulty that will make your meditation practice solid. It's how you deal with the difficulty that will. Conclusion. At the beginning of this guide, you might not have been sure about what you would need to start the journey towards opening your third eye, or really if it was something you wanted to do. There may have been questions about the hype, or whether it would be possible to connect with something that, in all reality, doesn't have a tangible location in the body. Could you really trust in the process to leave you with a feeling of tranquility? What about those people who talk about gaining better clarity of ability to focus? What this guide has attempted to do is make you the guru of your own journey by providing you with useful evidence-based information, as well as addressing any doubts you might have had. Let's review some of the things that you learned about the third eye in a third eye meditation practice. In Chapter 1, you were armed with the language of meditation. Whereas you might have been confused in the past about concepts like chakras, mudras, or mantras, you know how a reference guide that explains what these things are and how they can be used as tools for your practice. Next, in Chapter 2, we talked about the history of meditation. This was meant to address one of the common reasons why people choose not to follow a meditation practice. They don't understand it. By reviewing meditation's roots in ancient India, as well as some of the offshoots and ways that it's been translated and adapted to fit Western audiences, you can make your own decisions about what style you follow and how much of a spiritual lens you choose to bring to your practice. But there's another reason why we reviewed the history: to invite gratitude, humility, and appreciation. Meditation has existed for thousands of years because it works. If it didn't bring peace, enlightenment, and connection to people, we simply wouldn't have it today. But because of its success as a practice, meditation has not only endured, but been sought out by other cultures. Perhaps that sense of community is enough to pique your interest in meditation and inspire you to learn more about it. That said, because this is primarily a guide intended to open your third eye through meditation, the history lesson was brief. If you have time in the future, you should definitely do more research into the history of your practice, because it will enrich your experience overall. Chapter 3 brought us back to modern-day society by talking about the neuroscience of meditation. As more and more people have turned toward this ancient practice for relief from pain and general well-being, scientists have chosen to research the neurobiology of the phenomenon. And, although much of the research is still being conducted, the findings so far have been incredible. Scientists have found that meditation literally changes the brain structure by promoting new neural pathways. The result is relief from physical and mental suffering, an increased sense of calm and control, and better cognitive function. It's amazing to think that this is just the beginning. In Part 2, I wanted to shift from information gathering to action. In addition to giving you different meditation styles to try, the 3 final chapters also had to do with setting up a strong meditation practice through strategic planning, as well as troubleshooting any difficulties you may face. In Chapter 4, I encourage you to get creative with your meditation plan. By personalizing your practice, you're more likely to follow through, so this chapter was all about mixing and matching to create your ideal plan. You are asked to make decisions about whether you would prefer to practice alone or in a class, in which style might be the most appealing to you to start. You are also encouraged to formalize your intention and commit to keeping a meditation journal. Chapter 5 probably seemed like the meat and potatoes of this guide. I offered up 7 different meditation practices, each with a short step-by-step guided meditation to get you started. Some of these were based on traditional styles, and others incorporated a more modern take on meditation, but at the end of the day, each one of them will benefit you should you choose to make it the center of your practice. I also wanted to include meditation practices that could help you specifically on your journey to opening the third eye. Chapter 6 is all about maintenance. Opening your third eye isn't going to happen the first day that you practice meditation. And that's okay. In fact, it's preferable that you come to terms with the fact that you might want to quit before you actually achieve the goal of connecting with your Ajna chakra. By admitting that you might eventually get bored, or that you might have a hard time dealing with some of the emotional backlash, you can properly prepare yourself for a practice that endures through these challenges. And now, friends, it's time to say goodbye. I surely haven't taught you everything that you could know about third eye meditation, but I hope that I've guided you to lay a foundation that will allow you to create a long-form, flourishing practice. From here on out, the most useful information that you're going to learn is going to come from within you as you turn your gaze inward and begin your search for the Ajna chakra. But before we end, perhaps it's useful to revisit one last time the power of the third eye chakra. You're here, after all, because you heard about the third eye as a source of knowledge, wisdom, and insight. You may have also heard about the other benefits of meditation, like increased levels of focus and clarity. But I think what is most beautiful about this journey inward is that you will have the opportunity to explore and understand that this power isn't separate from you. Your third eye isn't separate from you. It is a force within you. It is your potential. It is your intuition. It is you. And once you learn to harness that, you'll be unstoppable. With that, I'd like to thank you for going on this journey with me. Namaste. This has been Third Eye Awakening, the complete meditation guide to open your third eye, increase mind power, clarity, concentration, insight, and enhance your awareness. Written by Mark Madison. Narrated by Ronald Hillman. Copyright 2018 by Mark Madison. Production copyright by Mark Madison.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.